Chapter 2470. Yu Qingqi's sudden attack also shocked the others, and their eyes trembled. Who would have thought that Yu Qingqi would attack again, even though he had clearly lost, and it was a sneak attack? Standing still, Nie Tian didn't even turn his head as he let out a bellow and unleashed a powerful aura. "You're courting death!" Bang! A muffled sound came from the sky, and Yu Qingqi immediately felt a huge force pressing down on him. His body swayed, and he fell down like a kite with a broken string. Bang! His body landed heavily like a giant rock, and a wave of dust dozens of meters high was stirred up. The Yu family's disciples were completely shocked by the scene in front of them. Their eyes trembled, and their expressions were so shocked that they couldn't speak. Nie Tian was too terrifying. Even Yu Qingqi couldn't withstand a single wave of his aura. "Qingqi!" Yu Shunlin finally came back to his senses, and he shouted in shock, and his face turned green. Yu Qingqi was seen by him as the hope of the Yu family's rise, and the next head of the Yu family would definitely be Yu Qingqi. If Yu Qingqi died or was crippled, Yu Shenglin's intestines would turn green with regret. "Seventh brother, are you okay?" At that moment, a huge figure flashed past, and came to Yu Qingqi's side, and asked with concern in a low, muffled voice. This figure was none other than Yu Zhuosheng. "You fool, get out of my way!" Yu Qingqi stood up, but he didn't appreciate it, and instead scolded Yu Zhuosheng. Yu Zhuosheng's huge figure paused, and he became a yes-man, not daring to go near Yu Qingqi. Seeing this, Nie Tian couldn't help but frown, and he thought to himself, "This guy is really unreasonable. He's so cruel to his own brother." Just now, Nie Tian could have killed Yu Qingqi, but he didn't because he didn't want to have any conflict with the Yu family. Yu Shunlin treated Yu Qingqi like a treasure, and if the latter died, Yu Shunlin would probably be furious. Seeing that Yu Qingqi was fine, Yu Shenglin's heart was finally at ease. "Thank you, little friend Nie Tian, for showing mercy." Yu Shenglin hurried to Nie Tian's side and bowed to express his gratitude. Nie Tian nodded, then turned his gaze to Yu Ji Wushuang and asked, "Patriarch Yu, what is this brother's name?" Yu Shenglin was stunned for a moment. He was puzzled. Could it be that Nie Tian really wanted to bring Yu Ji and Wushuang along? Yu Ji Wushuang was indeed powerful, but his mind was not complete. He was no different from a fool. "Little friend Nie Tian, his name is Yu Ji Wushuang, and he is ranked 9th among the younger generation of the Yu clan." Yu Shenglin thought for a while, then said, "Nie Tian, you must have noticed that Wushuang is a little immature, so, Yu Ji Wushuang, what a good name." Nie Tian didn't wait for Yu Shenglin to finish before he nodded and said heavily. The Yu family disciples were stunned and looked at Nie Tian in confusion. Until now, they still didn't know why Nie Tian chose the Yu family disciples. However, it was quite surprising that Nie Tian chose a fool in the end. "Little friend Nie Tian, this." Yu Shenglin didn't expect that Nie Tian would really choose Yu Ji Wushuang. He couldn't help but feel embarrassed. He knew that Nie Tian was looking for the spiritual heart of all trees. Was he going to let a fool integrate the spiritual heart of all trees? "Patriarch Yu, you said before that I can choose anyone in the Yu family except you," Nie Tian said with a faint smile, looking at Yu Shenglin. "Nie Tian, my young friend, I did say something like that," Yu Shenglin said with a grim expression, "but Wushuang, he's a fool." In the end, Yu Shenglin said that Yu Ji Wushuang was a fool. "Uncle, Wushuang is not a fool." Before Nie Tian could speak, Yu Ji Wushuang shouted in a low voice, looking very angry. He seemed to think that others could call him a fool, but the patriarch couldn't. Yu Shenglin was stunned for a moment, and his old face became even darker. "Patriarch Yu, I think this brother Wushuang is not a fool. I will bring him along this time," Nie Tian said with a faint smile, looking determined. Yu Shenglin's face darkened. He knew that he couldn't change Nie Tian's mind. He could only look at Yu Ji Wushuang and asked, "Wushuang, are you willing to follow Lord Nie Tian to look for the spiritual heart of all trees?" The spiritual heart of all trees. The Yu family disciples were stunned, and their eyes instantly became burning. They didn't expect that Nye Tian was going to bring people to look for the spiritual heart of all trees. The spiritual heart of all trees? Yu Ji Wushuang was stunned. He shook his head and said, "What is it? Can it be eaten? Is it delicious?" As soon as he finished speaking, the crowd roared with laughter. The spiritual heart of all trees was a wood elemental source power, but Yu Ji Wushuang treated it as food. He was really a fool. Wushuang, the spiritual heart of all trees, is not something to eat. It is a powerful force. Yu Shenglin's old face darkened, and he scolded, "You don't need to know too much. You only need to answer me. Are you willing to go with Lord Nye Tian?" No. This time Yu Ji Wushuang understood. He shook his head vigorously and said, "You're not willing?" The crowd was shocked, and they looked at Yu Ji Wushuang speechlessly. They were going to look for the spiritual heart of all trees, and Yu Ji Wushuang was actually unwilling to go with them. All the Yu family disciples present, including Yu Qingqi, were eager to go with Nye Tian. Yu Shenglin was also stunned, and he couldn't help but ask, "Why not?" Suddenly, Yu Ji Wushuang looked at Nye Tian, and with a silly smile, he said, "If he can beat me, I'll go with him." Nye Tian frowned, and then couldn't help but smile. Yu Ji Wushuang didn't think Nye Tian was a match for him, so he didn't want to go with Nye Tian. "Nonsense!" Yu Shenglin roared. "Who do you think you are? You don't deserve to fight Lord Nye Tian." This time, Yu Ji Wushuang wasn't afraid. He said seriously, "I'm a peak paramount god, and he's only a late paramount god. My status is higher than his." Yu Shenglin was stunned. He was so angry at Yu Ji Wushuang that he couldn't speak. "QL 11-inch Patriarch Yu, since Wushuang wants to test my strength, I can't refuse." At this time, Nye Tian smiled, then looked at Yu Ji Wushuang and said, "Wushuang, please." "All right." Yu Ji Wushuang was very excited. He stamped his feet, causing cracks to appear on the ground as he shot up into the sky. With a faint smile, Nye Tian blurred into action and flew high into the sky, where he stood opposite Yu Ji and Wushuang. Everyone's eyes were shining brightly as they looked up at the two figures in the sky. Obviously, they were looking forward to the fight. Nye Tian had already displayed shocking battle prowess, and Yu Ji Wushuang's strength was also very frightening. Although Yu Ji Wushuang was a fool, all the members of the Yu clan knew that he was stronger than Yu Qingqi. Therefore, the battle between Nye Tian and Yu Ji Wushuang would be very difficult to predict. Looking at Nye Tian and Yu Ji Wushuang, Yu Shenglin frowned slightly and thought to himself, "Nye Tian, are you really a match for Wushuang?" He guessed that Yu Ji Wushuang's strength was definitely comparable to the peak of the former. Chapter 2471. High up in the sky, two figures stood tall and proud. Nye Tian's eyes shone as he looked at Yu Ji Wushuang with a smile. He also wanted to know exactly how strong Yu Ji Wushuang was. Yu Ji Wushuang chuckled, and a layer of gray aura surged around him. It was very strange. Nye Tian frowned. He felt that Yu Ji Wushuang's aura was very strange. It was not pure wood-based power, but seemed to contain some kind of rock-based power. "Kid, I'll let you make 3 moves first," Yu Ji Wushuang shouted, looking unconcerned. He wasn't being arrogant, but he really thought that Nye Tian was a kid, so he would let him make a few moves first. "Sure." With a faint smile, Nye Tian blurred into motion and threw a punch out. A fist shadow that was as heavy as a mountain shot towards Yu Ji and Wushuang. Yu Ji Wushuang chuckled, but he didn't move. QL 11 bang. The next moment, the fist shadow landed heavily on Yu Ji Wushuang's body, but it shattered. Yu Ji Wushuang stood there like an old tree rooted to the ground, not moving an inch. Huh! Nye Tian couldn't help but frown when he saw this. He was quite surprised. Although the punch just now wasn't very strong, it was enough to threaten an ordinary peak paramount god. If his opponent had been Yu Qingqi, the latter would probably have been injured. But Yu Ji Wushuang didn't react at all. His martial body was very strong. But Yu Ji Wuxuang didn't react at all. His martial body was very strong. Although they usually bullied Yu Ji Wuxuang, at this moment, they hoped that Yu Ji Wuxuang could win and regain some face for the Yu clan. This fool is indeed not simple. Yu Qingqi looked at Yu Ji Wuxuang, shocked, but his face was very unsightly. He was known as the number one of the Yu clan's younger generation, but he wasn't the strongest. Of course, this wasn't a good feeling. Kid, is this all you've got? It's not even enough to tickle me. Ah. Yu Ji Wuxuang was very proud of himself, and he laughed loudly. Is that so? The corners of Nie Tian's mouth twitched as his aura surged. His silhouette flickered as he shouted in a low voice, Divine War Emperor Fist! Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, Nie Tian punched out. His aura instantly gathered, and a golden fist shadow appeared. It was like a golden dragon, pressing down on Yu Ji Wuxuang. However, Yu Ji and Wuxuang still did not move. They were prepared to take this punch head-on. Boom! The next moment, the golden fist descended and landed on Yu Ji Wuxuang's body. His body trembled slightly, and he could not help but take a few steps back. However, he immediately steadied himself. Nie Tian's punch caused Yu Ji Wuxuang to take a few steps back, but that was all. This guy, what a strong martial body! Nie Tian frowned, unable to conceal the surprise in his eyes. Yu Ji's unparalleled martial body was indeed strong enough. He took two of Nie Tian's punches head-on, and was not injured at all. Terrifying! The crowd below gasped in shock when they saw this. Yu Ji's unparalleled strength was beyond their expectations. This time, even Yu Shenglin was slightly moved. He thought that even if he had taken Nie Tian's punch head-on, it would not have been so easy. Kid, your punch is not bad, but it is not enough, Yu Ji Wuxuang said proudly as he patted the dust off his body. Good. Then I will show you my third punch. Nie Tian's lips curled up into a smile. Then, his body shook, and his whole body released a terrifying dragon chi. The surrounding space shook slightly, as if it was about to be torn apart. Roar! The next moment, Nie Tian punched out, and the shadow of a dragon whistled out. The dragon's roar shook the sky, and it carried with it an unparalleled dragon might as it pressed down. Yu Ji Wuxuang felt a huge pressure in an instant, and his eyes could not help but tremble. Then, a layer of dust appeared all over his body, wrapping him up, making him look like a human-shaped stone. Bang! Then, the shadow of the dragon fell, and there was a muffled sound. Yu Ji Wuxuang's body trembled, and he retreated hundreds of meters, but then he stood still again. This time, he was not as relaxed as before. His face was a little red, and there was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. When the crowd saw the scene in the sky, they could not help but gasp, and their faces instantly became nervous. The power of Nie Tian's punch was obviously much more powerful, and it had directly injured Yu Ji Wuxuang. Yu Shenglin's eyes trembled, and he was extremely surprised. He had not expected that Nie Tian's body could release such a huge amount of dragon chi. Kid, you are serious? Yu Ji Wuxuang, who was high up in the sky, was angry. He roared, and then his body moved at an extremely fast speed. He was like the wind and lightning, and he attacked Nie Tian. Boom, boom, boom. His fighting style was very simple. He just punched and kicked. Feeling Yu Ji Wuxuang's momentum, Nie Tian could not help but retreat again and again. He did not take the latter's attack head-on. Instead, he defended 30% and dodged 70%. It had to be said that Yu Ji Wuxuang's power was really powerful. Even though it was just a simple punch and a kick, every time he attacked, the void space would tremble. What was even more strange was that a layer of stone-like substance had formed around Yu Ji Wuxuang's body. His whole body was wrapped in it, and he looked like a stone man. Moreover, the aura all over his body was constantly increasing, as if he was about to go crazy. Nie Tian was forced to retreat again and again by Yu Ji Wushuang, and his expression became more and more strange. He could faintly feel that as Yu Ji Wushuang's power became stronger, his consciousness became weaker and weaker. Boom! Boom! In the void space, two muffled sounds were heard. Nie Tian's figure suddenly retreated, and he put some distance between himself and Yu Ji Wushuang. Yu Ji Wushuang roared angrily, and like a wild beast, he rushed toward Nie Tian. Oh no! Yu Shenglin, who was below, saw this scene, and his face instantly darkened. He shouted in his heart, "Wushuang is going to lose control." This was not the first time that Yu Ji Wushuang had lost control. Every time he lost control, he would cause a huge commotion. Yu Shenglin's face revealed a horrified expression. He even suspected that if Yu Ji Wushuang completely lost control, he would not be a match for him. Nie Tian resisted and retreated at the same time, maintaining a distance from Yu Ji Wushuang. At this moment, Fat Cat's voice suddenly rang out, and she shouted in surprise, "This is the body of Earth Rock." Body of Earth Rock? Nie Tian was stunned. He had never heard of such a martial body before. The two strongest martial bodies of the Earth attribute are the body of Heavenly Stone, and the other is the body of Earth Rock. Fat Cat calmed down and explained hurriedly. Heavenly Stone, Earth Rock. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed, and he immediately thought of something. He was very unfamiliar with the body of Earth Rock, but he was very familiar with the body of Heavenly Stone. He had a disciple who had the body of Heavenly Stone. Back in the Sumer world of the Plain World, Nie Tian had once accepted a disciple named Han Tian, who had the body of Heavenly Stone. It was rumored that when the body of Heavenly Stone was cultivated to the extreme, it could reach the state of immortality and indestructibility. Since the body of Earth Rock and the body of Heavenly Stone were equally famous, it was definitely not weaker than the body of Heavenly Stone. Yu Ji Wushuang's strength was already at the peak of the Supreme God level, and the power he could exert with the body of Earth Rock was very strong. Chapter 2472. The martial bodies of the Yu family were usually of the wood element. How could there be someone with an earth element martial body? Nie Tian, you must stop him immediately. If he continues to be arrogant, his divine sense will collapse. At this time, the Fat Cat's voice sounded again, and it sounded very panicked. Nie Tian did not ask too much. His whole body's aura soared, and endless power of the stars gushed out. Boundless starlight fell like a falling galaxy, dazzling and brilliant. Sky-shrouding totem, come out. Then, Nie Tian released the sky-shrouding totem, which was like a giant starlight net, covering Yu Ji Wushuang. Break it! Yu Ji Wushuang roared and punched. The fist shadow was like a dragon, bombarding the sky-shrouding totem and creating a huge gap. Seeing this, Nie Tian could not help but tremble. Yu Ji Wushuang's power was stronger than he had imagined. Then, Nie Tian controlled the sky-shrouding totem. It rolled layer by layer and suddenly closed, trapping Yu Ji Wushuang within. Let go of me! Yu Ji Wushuang roared furiously, releasing all the power in his body. The whole sky-shrouding totem shook violently, as if it would collapse at the next moment. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. Without hesitation, his body shook, and several bone-eroding soul-shackling chains appeared and shot out. Before Yu Ji Wushuang could react, he was firmly bound by the bone-eroding soul-shackling chains and could no longer move. The people below were completely stunned by the scene in front of them, and their eyes were trembling. Who would have thought that Nie Tian would have such a heaven-defying method? Ah! Yu Ji Wushuang was bound by the bone-eroding soul-shackling chains, enduring the burning of the soul-refining flame. He suddenly let out a heart-wrenching howl. Nie Tian, my little friend, have mercy! Yu Shenglin's face was green with fear. His figure moved, and he came to the sky, shouting loudly. Nie Tian nodded. Then, suddenly, the bone-eroding soul-shackling chains tightened. Yu Wuxuang could no longer bear it and directly passed out. Seeing this, Nie Tian immediately withdrew the bone-eroding soul shackling chains and the heaven-shrouding totem. Yu Shenglin moved and held Yu Juxuang in his arms. "Little friend Nie Tian, let's talk about this later," Yu Shenglin said. With a flash, he left. Nie Tian exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. His figure landed, but he didn't stop. Together with Jun Aoqing, he returned to the Jade Mansion's lobby. "Nie Tian, are you okay?" Jun Aoqing looked at Nie Tian with some worry and asked. Nie Tian shook his head and smiled, indicating that he was fine. What happened just now was a little strange. Why did Yu Ji and Wuxuang suddenly lose control? Could it be that all martial artists with the body of Earth Rock would lose control? Nie Tian, that big guy definitely has the body of Earth Rock. At that moment the fat cat's voice rang out. I think that the reason why he's mentally unstable is because of the pressure from the body of Earth's rock. What do you mean? Nie Tian was stunned and puzzled. Han Tian had the body of heavenly stone, but he didn't seem to be suppressed by the body of heavenly stone. Could it be that the body of Earth Rock was completely different from the body of heavenly stone? The body of Earth Rock itself doesn't have any disadvantages. It won't suppress a martial artist's mind. The fat cat frowned and said, but the key is that that guy has the divine body of all wood. When Nie Tian heard the fat cat's words, his eyes couldn't help but tremble and he exclaimed, divine body of all wood. He was no stranger to this kind of bloodline martial body. Not long ago, Yu Li, whom he killed in the Dark Sea Dark Prison, had the divine body of all wood. He really didn't expect Yu Juxuang to be so powerful. He was actually a martial artist with a double bloodline martial body. The divine body of all wood was the peak of the wood attribute martial body, and the body of Earth Rock was the strongest martial body of the Earth attribute. It was no wonder that Yu Juxuang's martial body was so powerful. The myriad wood divine body and the body of Earth Rock, any one of these two bloodline martial bodies is extremely powerful. The fat cat nodded and continued, now, they actually appeared on that guy's body at the same time. This is very scary. These two martial bodies, one is of the wood attribute, and the other is of the earth attribute. There is no repulsion between the two attributes of earth and wood. Instead, they are very compatible. Therefore, when the divine body of all wood and the body of Earth Rock are combined, there is a situation where 1 + 1 is greater than 2. Therefore, that guy's martial body is definitely very powerful. Because of this, his mind was suppressed, and in the end, his mind was not complete. If this guy was a person with a complete mind, with his age and talent, he would at least be at the peak of the divine state. He might even have broken through the boundary limit and reached the strength of a half-step saint. After listening to the fat cat, Nie Tian couldn't help but swallow his saliva. He didn't expect Yu Juxuang to be so abnormal. After a moment of silence, Nie Tian couldn't help but ask, Fat, do you have a way to restore Yu Juxuang to a normal person's mind? It was really sad to see such a talented martial artist ruined because of his incomplete mind. Yes. The fat cat's eyes trembled slightly. Unless you let that guy merge the spiritual heart of all wood and the vein of the earth at the same time, using the two kinds of origin power to attack his martial body and release his suppressed mind. Actually, his mind is sound. It's just that it is suppressed by the two martial bodies and can't be released. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed slightly and his face stiffened. The spiritual heart of all wood and the vein of the earth were two kinds of origin power. If they were merged into Yu Juxuang's body at the same time, how powerful would this guy be? The most important thing was that Nie Tian's time was limited. After finding the spiritual heart of all wood, he could merge it into Yu Juxuang's body. But then, would he have to take Yu Juxuang to find the vein of the earth? Thinking of this, Nie Tian hesitated. He was not a noble person. If he had nothing else to do, he could help Yu Juxuang. But now, he had a big mess on his hands. He really did not have extra time to help others. QL 11-inch Nietian, don't think too much. Just take it one step at a time, the fat cat said with a faint smile. She knew what Nietian was thinking. Nietian nodded slightly. This was the only way. At this time, Yu Shunglin and Yu Qingqi appeared. The two of them quickly walked into the hall. My little friend Nietian, sorry to keep you waiting. Yu Shunglin entered the hall and cupped his hands at Nietian. He apologized sincerely. Nietian stood up and smiled faintly. Then, he asked, how is Yu Zhuoshwang? He is still unconscious, but his breathing is stable. He is fine now, Yu Shunglin said with a nod. Yu Shunglin nodded. Then, his eyes flashed. He looked at Nietian and said, my little friend Nietian, you saw it too? Although Wu Shuang is very powerful, he easily loses control when he is agitated and angry. If you take him with you, not only will he not be able to help you, but he will also become a burden. After much consideration, the most suitable candidate right now is Qingqi. As he spoke, Yu Shunglin gave Yu Qingqi a look. Although Yu Qingqi was very reluctant, he still walked forward. He bowed deeply at Nietian and said, I am willing to follow Lord Nietian to find the spiritual heart of all wood. Lord Nietian, please give me a chance. Chapter 2473. Nietian smiled faintly. His gaze swept across Yu Shunglin and Yu Qingqi, but he did not say anything. How could he not see what the father and son of the Yu family were planning? It was obvious that they had their eyes on the spiritual heart of all wood. Yu Shunglin knew very well that whoever went with Nietian would have the opportunity to fuse with the spiritual heart of all wood. Although Yu Zhuoshwang and Yu Qingqi were both from the Yu family, their relationship with Yu Shunglin was, of course, different. Yu Zhuoshwang was Yu Shunglin's nephew, while Yu Qingqi was his son. This was definitely different. Therefore, Yu Shunglin wanted to seize this opportunity and let his son, Yu Qingqi, go with Nietian. Nietian, my young friend, what do you think? Yu Shunglin could not help but ask again, seeing that Nietian was not saying anything. His expression became slightly awkward. Nietian smiled faintly and said, Clan Master Yu, I don't think I need to tell you how great the gap in strength between Yu Qingqi and Yu Zhuoshwang is. Before, I thought Yu Qingqi was just barely strong enough. However, after I fought him, I felt that he couldn't even be considered to be passable. Tell me, isn't he also a burden if I bring him with me? Hearing Nietian's words, Yu Shunglin's expression became extremely ugly, and he was momentarily speechless. Yu Qingqi's face was scrunched up. He was very angry, but he did not dare to say anything. He had personally experienced Nietian's strength, and he indeed had the right to say that. Patriarch Yu, how about this? At this moment, Nietian spoke again. He smiled faintly and said, I will bring Yu Zhuoshwang and Yu Qingqi with me. Together? Yu Shunglin was stunned and his face was full of surprise. He did not expect Nietian to say this at all. One burden is a burden and two burdens are also burdens. There is no difference, Nietian smiled faintly and said seriously. Yu Qingqi's face turned as red as an eggplant when he heard Nietian's words. He was a top genius of the Yu family. Why did he become a burden in Nietian's words? If that's the case, that's fine. Yu Shunglin looked helpless. Then, his eyes flashed and he asked, Nietian, if you find the spiritual heart of all wood, which one of them will fuse with it? Nietian smiled and said, It doesn't matter who fuses with it. They are both from the Yu family. This. Yu Shunglin's face froze and he was suddenly speechless. Lord Yu Shunglin did not know what to say. We'll leave as soon as Yu Ji and Wu Shuang wake up, Nietian said with a faint smile, not looking at Yu Shunglin's expression. The faces of Yu Shunglin and Yu Qingqi stiffened, looking as ugly as one could imagine. If Yu Qingqi couldn't fuse with the all-wood spirit heart, why would he accompany Nietian on this dangerous journey? If Yu Qingqi could not fuse with the spiritual heart of all wood, Why would he accompany Nie Tian on this dangerous journey? Yu Shenglin looked at Nie Tian's back and said to Yu Qingqi in a low voice, "Qingqi, remember what I said. No matter what happens, do not have any conflict with Nie Tian." "I will remember." Yu Qingqi nodded his head, but there was a strange glint in his eyes. Half a day later, Yu Qingqi and Yu Qingqi woke up. Nie Tian did not waste any more time and left immediately. Outside Yufeng City, Nie Tian and the others were getting further and further away. Yu Shenglin looked at them with worry in his eyes. He had a feeling that Yu Qingqi would not listen to him. However, it was too late to say anything now. Yu Qingqi had already left with Nie Tian. 2 days later, Nie Tian and the others arrived at the extreme north of the God-forbidding region. They were standing outside a long and narrow canyon. Passing through this canyon, they would be able to enter the connecting area between the God-forbidding region and the frozen ruins. "Lord Nie Tian, what are we doing here?" Yu Qingqi looked at the canyon in front of him and could not help asking with a puzzled expression. "You don't need to know why," Nie Tianling responded coldly. His brows were tightly knitted, hesitating whether to enter the canyon in front of him or not. "Nie Tian, have you discovered it?" Jun Aoqing saw Nie Tian's strange expression. Her beautiful eyes flickered, and she transmitted her voice to ask. Nie Tian nodded and said with a bitter smile, "These people have been following us all the way but have not made a move. They are waiting for the best time. If we enter this canyon, it will be the best time for them to make a move." As soon as Nie Tian left Jade Maple City, he discovered that someone had been following them. But he did not want to pay attention to these people, so he did not say anything. He did not expect that these people were so persistent. They actually followed them for 3 days and came here. "Nie Tian, are we entering the canyon?" Jun Aoqing turned to look at Nie Tian and asked hesitantly. This canyon in front of them was a place they had to pass through to enter the connecting area between the two realms. If Nie Tian chose to take a detour, he would waste at least a day. If they passed through the air, they would encounter high-intensity spacetime vortexes. It was very dangerous. A place at the limits of a realm like this was very dangerous to begin with. Very few people set foot in it. "Enter." Nie Tian did not hesitate and spat out a word. He did not have time to play games with these people. It was better to enter the canyon directly and let those people show themselves automatically. Saying this, Nie Tian directly stepped out and entered the canyon. Jun Aoqing, Yu Ji Wushuang, and Yu Qingqi immediately followed. The moment the 4 of them entered the canyon, they felt a bone-chilling wind hit them in the face. The entire canyon exuded a kind of eerie aura. Nie Tian looked up. On both sides of the canyon were cliffs so high that the top could not be seen. Only the front and the back could be entered. It was truly a dangerous place. The fog in the canyon was very thick. Nie Tian and the others did not dare to move too fast. Just when they were about 10,000 meters away, dozens of auras came from behind them. "The tail is here." Nie Tian smiled faintly. He steadied himself and signaled Jun Aoqing and the others to be vigilant. "Who is it?" Yu Qingqi could not hold back his temper. Sensing that there was someone behind him, he immediately roared, "The person who wants your life." Immediately, a low voice came from the thick fog. Boom! In the next instant, a vigorous energy appeared. Like a dragon breaking out of the abyss, it roared out and attacked Yu Qingqi. "Oh no!" Yu Qingqi could not help but exclaim when he felt the powerful energy rushing towards him. His small face turned pale. He could feel that the person who attacked him was definitely an expert at the peak of the half-step realm. He could not block this attack at all. "Seventh brother, I'm coming to save you." At this moment, a voice was heard. Immediately, a huge figure stepped out. He straightened his chest and took the attack in the air. Bang! Immediately, the terrifying attack fell heavily on Yu Ji Wushuang's body. However, he took the attack head-on. A surprised voice came from the thick fog. The person who attacked obviously did not expect Yu Ji Wuxuang to be able to block his attack so easily. The next moment, Nie Tian stepped out and said in a low voice with a cold smile, "Come out. I know who you are. Little Nie, you escaped last time. This time, you won't be so lucky." Immediately, a low voice came from the thick fog. Then, a figure in black slowly walked out. "It really is you, Ren Quanchen." Nie Tian saw the face of the figure in black clearly. His eyes darkened and he shouted the person's name. It turned out that the person who had been following Nie Tian was none other than the former Deputy Alliance leader of the Wind and Cloud Alliance, Ren Quanchen. Nie Tian did not expect that Ren Quanchen's desire to kill him was so strong. As expected, he could follow him all the way here. Chapter 2474. Nie Tianling looked at Ren Quanchen coldly, his eyes cold and murderous. He didn't expect this guy to chase him all the way here. Ren Quanchen stared at Nie Tian with his eagle-like eyes and said coldly, "Nie brat, I'm afraid you already knew that someone was following you. I can't believe you still dared to enter this valley. It seems that you're prepared to die. Ren Quanchen, are you really that confident that you'll be able to kill me?" Nie Tian sneered, his eyes filled with disdain. "Stinking brat, you're about to die, yet you still dare to be so insolent." Ren Quanchen roared and ordered, "Attack!" Yes. The dozens of black-clad martial artists responded in unison, their voices like thunder resounding in the canyon. The next moment, dozens of figures moved at the same time, their auras surging out. They linked together, and a terrible attack came crashing down like a landslide or tsunami. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed slightly, and he retreated slightly, shielding Jun ouching behind him. Right at this moment, a figure dashed out. Like a ferocious beast, he charged forth to kill. Nie Tian was stunned. When he saw that the figure was Yu Ji Wuxuang, he couldn't help but shout, "Yu Ji Wuxuang." Most of the black-clad martial artists were late-stage paramount gods, and a few were peak paramount gods. When they joined forces, their power was no weaker than a half-step peak expert. The most troublesome thing was that Ren Quanchen was watching from the side. It was too reckless for Yu Ji Wuxuang to rush over. Bang! 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 Yu Ji Wuxuang's body surged with the power of rocks, and his body was wrapped in a layer of rocks. He looked like a wild beast as he broke through the attacks of the black-clad martial artists. When the dozens of black-clad martial artists saw this, they were stunned, their faces filled with horror. They never thought that this blockhead would be so powerful. "You're courting death." On the other side, Ren Quanchen's face darkened when he saw Yu Ji Wuxuang's ferocity. The corner of his mouth twitched, and he suddenly struck out with his palm. Rolling palm energy exploded, pressing down on Yu Ji Wuxuang. Boom! Almost at the same time that Ren Quanchen struck, a fist shadow appeared in the air, blocking his palm. QL11 Nie Tian's figure froze in midair as he stared coldly at Ren Quanchen. He said in a disdainful tone, "Ren Quanchen, you're a famous expert, yet you actually sneak attacked a junior. How shameless! Compared to winning or losing, what is shame?" Ren Quanchen growled, but the way he looked at Nie Tian was a little strange. Obviously, he did not expect Nie Tian's strength to increase a little in just a few days. Nie Tianling laughed. He didn't feel like talking nonsense with Ren Quanchen and said in a deep voice, "Make your move." Yu Zhuxuang was extremely ferocious. He alone was enough to hold back the dozens of black-robed cultivators. Jun Ouching was not weak either, so she could help. As for Yu Qingqi, he only needed to protect himself. "Little brat Nie, your strength is indeed astonishing. However, it's a pity that you're too terrifying and shouldn't exist in this world," Ren Quanchen said in a cold voice. His whole body's aura rose sharply, and the cliffs on both sides were impacted and actually began to crack. "Is this why you want to kill me?" Nie Tianling replied with a smile. "It seems that you're now a member of the Holy Parliament. Nie Tian, you're very smart." Ren Quanchen smiled and said, "As long as I kill you, I can become the Vice President of the Holy Parliament. When Lord Huijoshin comes out, the entire 9 major domains will belong to the Holy Parliament. And as the Vice President of the Holy Parliament, I can control at least 3 major domains. Isn't that much better than a mere Vice Alliance leader of Fengyun? As he spoke, Ren Quanchen laughed wildly. Obviously, he was immersed in his own fantasies. The Vice President of the Holy Parliament? Nie Tian laughed, and the corners of his mouth turned cold and murderous. He said in a deep voice, "You'll have to be alive to do it." Arrogant! Ren Quanchen roared, and his figure moved instantly. His whole body's aura was like a mountain, and he directly struck out with his palm. Palm shadows rolled out, causing the space to shake. Nie Tian, watch out! Jun Aoqing saw this scene from afar, and her beautiful eyes flickered as she cried out. Feeling the pressure coming towards him, Nie Tian's expression changed slightly. Starlight Heaven Slash appeared in his hand, and his whole body released a wild sword will as he stabbed out with his sword. Boom! In the next instant, the palm shadow and the sword shadow collided, and the space shook violently. A shockwave visible to the naked eye surged out, and deep ravines appeared on the cliffs on both sides. Nie Tian's figure was affected, and he couldn't help but retreat. At this moment, Ren Quanchen's figure once again pressed down, and he struck out with his palm again. Boom! 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 As the palm fell, countless terrifying palm shadows appeared in the air, and like a dense rain of arrows, they bombarded towards Nie Tian. Nie Tian didn't panic in the face of danger, and his whole body's sword will surged, forming a shield of starlight sword will around him. Boom! 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 The palm shadows landed on the shield of starlight sword will, and Nie Tian kept retreating. After all, Ren Quanchen was an expert at the peak of the half-step, and his strength was much stronger than Nie Tian's. In a head-on battle like this, Nie Tian was at a disadvantage. Relying on the shield of starlight sword will, Nie Tian blocked the countless palm shadows, but he couldn't stop retreating. In the blink of an eye, he was forced to the edge of the cliff, and there was nowhere to retreat. Young man, go to hell! Seeing this, Ren Quanchen's lips curled up in a cold smile, and his whole body released waves of dark aura, which condensed into a giant black python, which was abnormally huge, and its momentum could swallow the sky. The power of blood meridians again. Nie Tian's eyes suddenly trembled, and he had a bad feeling in his heart. Previously, when he fought with Ren Quanchen, the latter had used this kind of power, and it was very terrifying. Hiss! At this moment, the giant black python suddenly flicked its tongue, and its body rolled out. Like a moving giant black mountain, it crazily pressed down on Nie Tian. Nie Tian frowned and immediately reacted. In his body, the 9 dragon veins revolved wildly, and waves of dragon energy were released crazily. The giant red dragon appeared again. Roar! The giant dragon appeared again, and its roar shook the sky. Rumble! The next moment, in mid-air above the canyon, a giant red dragon and a giant black python collided with a loud bang. Suddenly, endless wild power surged, and countless sharp blades formed in the air, wreaking havoc in the space. Hiss, hiss, hiss! An ear-piercing sound came from the air, and under the impact of the wild power, the cliffs on both sides were torn apart bit by bit, and then collapsed. The figures of Nie Tian and Ren Quanchen were completely out of sight, and they were swallowed by the endless wild wolves. Below, Yu Ji, Wu Shuang, and dozens of martial artists in black all stood there in a daze, and the shock in their hearts was perfectly written on their faces. Yu Qingqi was even more shocked, and he completely turned into a stone statue. He completely couldn't imagine that Nie Tian could actually fight with a powerful martial artist like Ren Quanchen head-on. Nie Tian was really too terrifying. After a while, the wild power in the air dissipated, and the figures of Nie Tian and Ren Quanchen appeared. Ren Quanchen stood in mid-air, and his whole body was still full of fierce and murderous aura. Looking at Nie Tian, he was covered in blood, and it seemed that he was seriously injured. Chapter 2475. There was no doubt that in this head-on confrontation, Nye Tian was still slightly inferior. Nye Tian. June Ouching saw that Nye Tian was injured, and her beautiful eyes could not help but tremble, and she could not help but scream. Nye Tian's body shook, and the blood stains on his body were washed away. His aura was as fierce as before, and he did not suffer any serious injuries. "I'm fine." He glanced at June Ouching and said lightly, "Nye Tian, let June Ouching prepare in advance and leave this place." But at this moment Fat Cat's voice suddenly sounded, and it was very nervous, as if it had noticed something. "Fat, what happened?" Nye Tian could hear that Fat Cat was very nervous, and could not help but ask. "Don't ask too much, let's stall this guy first, don't kill him." Fat Cat did not explain too much, but there was unconcealable nervousness in its voice, and even a little panic. Nye Tian had a puzzled look, and did not know what Fat Cat had discovered, to actually be so nervous. He did not ask too much, but secretly transmitted to June Ouching, and said, "Ouching, use your sword will to open a space-time tunnel, we're ready to leave." June Ouching was stunned for a moment, and then immediately understood, but she did not make a sound, and secretly released the sword will in her body. "Nye Tian, it seems that I has underestimated you, you're stronger than before." Renquanshan saw that Nye Tian did not suffer any serious injuries, and at first, he was stunned, and then his eyes revealed a cold look. "You have underestimated me more than a little." Nye Tianling laughed, but he was not in a hurry to attack. Fat Cat let him stall with Renquanshan, and buy time for June Ouching. "Nye Tian, you deserve I to use my true strength." But Renquanshan did not intend to talk nonsense with Nye Tian, and his eyes flashed, and a terrible power surged from his body. "This guy is going to use his real killer move." Nye Tian's gaze trembled. He could feel that Renquanshan's aura was much stronger than before, and he couldn't help but exclaim in his heart. He had witnessed this scene the last time. But then Nye Dao came and scared Renquanshan away. But this time, Nye Tian didn't have any experts to protect him. "All right." In the next moment, Nye Tian's gaze was fixed, and his eyes were filled with a strong desire to fight. The corners of his mouth twitched and he growled, "Since you want to fight, I will accompany you to the end. I want to see exactly how strong you are." The black python that Renquanshan had conjured earlier was clearly the power of his bloodline. At this moment, he seemed to have fused the power of his bloodline with some kind of evil art. This strange fusion caused his strength to increase by a lot. Nye Tian's entire body surged with sword intent. At the same time, his blood energy surged in the air. The fiend god energy in his nascent embryo space was like a ferocious tiger lurking in ambush. "Little brat, watch carefully." At this moment, Renquanshan's aura skyrocketed to its peak. He let out a roar, and the black python appeared behind him. Then, the strangest scene took place. The black python's body suddenly split open, and 4 claws grew out of its body, like the arms of a dragon. On the top of the python's head, 2 dragon horns grew out, and dragon whiskers grew out of its lip. In the blink of an eye, the black python had transformed into a black dragon. This is I's strongest secret skill. Normally, I would only use it when I'm fighting against a top-tier expert. I didn't expect to use it on you today," Renquanshan said in a deep voice, and his eyes were extremely cold. He said in a deep voice, "Little brat, it's your honor to be killed by this skill. You should die without regrets." As soon as he finished speaking, the black dragon behind Renquanshan moved, and its enormous body rolled forward. Its giant dragon tail swept across, and a crack appeared on the cliff beside it, as if it was about to collapse. After Renquanshan activated his secret skill, his strength was close to that of a top-tier godly state expert. Nye Tian estimated that Renquanshan's current strength should be at the level of Nangong Dushio or Earth Chief. Would Nye Tian be able to withstand such a terrifying attack? Let's go all out. In an instant, Nye Tian's eyes were not filled with fear, but with a violent fighting spirit. His sword intent exploded, and under the stimulation of his vital energy, his strength skyrocketed to its peak. Human sword cutting stars. In the next instant, his face sank and his eyes were resolute. There was no ripple in his eyes, only the purest fighting spirit. At this moment, Nye Tian felt that he had entered a mysterious state, and everything around him seemed to have ceased to exist. In the entire world, there was only him and his sword intent. Die! Right at this moment, Ren Quanchen let out a wild roar, and the profound black colossal dragon roared furiously to the heavens. Its enormous body rumbled as it charged towards Nye Tian. A violent, ocean-like aura covered the heavens and the earth, surging in the void. The entire space was stretched taut, as if it was about to be torn apart. Boom! At the same time, Nye Tian brandished his longsword and thrust it forward. Suddenly, a sword shadow surged out, exploding and surging. 1,000-meter-long sword shadow appeared, and it attacked the black dragon. The crowd below was completely dumbfounded. Their eyes trembled, as if they could not believe what they were seeing. It was hard to imagine that this was a fight between a late paramount god and a half-peak paramount god. At this moment, Yu Qingqi's expression was completely blank. He finally understood why Yu Shunglin had warned him not to offend Nye Tian. Nye Tian was indeed terrifying. He was only a late-stage paramount god, but he could fight a peak half-step expert head-on. When he reached the paramount god stage, wouldn't he be able to fight a peak godly state expert? It was hard to imagine how terrifying Nye Tian would be when he grew up. QL 11-inch rumble. At this moment, the profound black dragon and the gigantic sword shadow collided. A thunderous boom rang out, and the space suddenly trembled. Boundless power instantly surged out, spreading in all directions. Bang, bang, bang. Terrible explosions sounded out in the air. Waves of power tore everything apart, and the cliffs on both sides cracked and crumbled into rubble. Nye Tian and Ren Quanchen's figures were once again engulfed by the raging waves. The two of them were no longer visible. The crowd below looked up, wondering what was happening in the sky. After a long time, the turbid waves in the air finally dissipated, and two figures gradually appeared. Two blood-colored figures hovered in the air, trembling slightly. Everyone couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air when they saw this, their expressions extremely shocked. The confrontation between Nye Tian and Ren Quanchen ended in a lose-lose situation. Ren Quanchen's body swayed slightly. He opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but before he could say a word, he spat out a mouthful of blood. "Are you surprised?" Nye Tian's voice echoed out, filled with a strong sense of provocation. Ren Quanchen's eyes trembled slightly. He was indeed very surprised. He had never thought that at the last moment, Nye Tian's sword would strangely become stronger. Chapter 2476. How is this possible? Ren Quanchen stood in the air shakily, his lips quivering as he finally cried out in shock. He never would have thought that Nye Tian could actually advance his sword Dao realm in an instant. Before that move, Nye Tian was only at the intermediate stage sword and martial unity realm. But now, he became the advanced stage sword and martial unity realm. In Ren Quanchen's view, this was something completely impossible. At that kind of life and death juncture, did Nye Tian still have the mood to comprehend sword Dao realm? Nothing is impossible. The corners of Nye Tian's mouth twitched as he responded coolly. In that instant earlier, he felt that he entered a mysterious state. That state only lasted for a blink of an eye, and it made his sword Dao realm advance. Ordinary people thought that the best environment for martial artists to cultivate was all sorts of mystic realms. Martial artists could communicate with heaven and earth and comprehend martial Dao in a completely undisturbed environment. But in Nye Tian's view, the best cultivation environment was actually the moment of life and death. The path of martial Tao was originally heaven-defying. The moment of life and death was the moment when a person's state of mind was at its most open-minded. Many martial artists comprehended peerless martial arts and martial techniques all at the moment of life and death. It was not strange that Nie Tian advanced to Sword Dao realm in an instant. That clash earlier could be said to be a moment of life and death, a clash of pinnacles. Nie Tian released berserk blood qi, coupled with the advancement of Sword Dao realm, it made him not be at a disadvantage. Both sides ended up with injuries, but the difference was that Nie Tian's martial body was stronger than Ren Quanqian's. Hence, the injuries he suffered at this time were not considered too severe. However, his blood qi was expended too much, his face was very pale. One had to admit that Ren Quanqian's secret art was really very powerful. If not for Nie Tian advancing his Sword Dao realm at the final juncture, his outcome would absolutely not be as easy as now. Nie Tian, even if I is not your match. At this time, Ren Quanqian opened his mouth coldly. The corners of his mouth curled into a hint of a strange smile as he said, "Do you think that you can really leave this place alive?" The smile on Ren Quanqian's face became even weirder. Unfortunately, at the next moment, a scene that Ren Quanqian couldn't even dream of appeared. "He won't live, but you'll die before him." As soon as he finished speaking, a low voice resounded in the sky, and it was mournful and filled with extremely heavy killing intent. Huh! When Ren Quanqian heard this voice, he couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. Pooh! However, before he could react, a black claw appeared in the void and pierced through Ren Quanqian's chest like a ghost. Instantly, fresh blood gushed out. Ren Quanqian's eyes widened and the light in his eyes disappeared. A half-step pinnacle ranker, the former deputy leader of the Wind and Cloud Alliance, died just like that. Until the moment of his death, Ren Quanqian did not know who killed him. Nie Tian was in front of Ren Quanqian and was shocked by the scene in front of him. At this moment, the face that appeared in front of him was not unfamiliar. In fact, it was extremely familiar. It was the vice-chairman of the Holy Assembly, Nangong Duxiu. The person who killed Ren Quanqian was Nangong Duxiu, a fool coveting the position of vice-chairman. What a joke! Nangong Duxiu smiled cold after killing Ren Quanqian casually. Then, he locked his gaze on Nie Tian and said with a sinister smile, "Nie Tian, long time no see." Nangong Duxiu. Nie Tian frowned and shouted the other party's name. He had never expected Nangong Duxiu to appear here. Nangong Duxiu was the true vice-chairman of the Holy Assembly. His strength was even greater than Ren Quanqian's. Ren Quanqian was only a half-step pinnacle ranker, but Nangong Duxiu could be considered a pinnacle godly state expert. In the entire 9 major domains, only a few people were stronger than Nangong Duxiu. Nangong Duxiu. Below, when Yu Qingqi heard this name, his eyes trembled. He was so shocked that he was dumbfounded. He could not understand what Nie Tian had done to incur the pursuit of so many experts. First, it was the Wind and Cloud Alliance's vice-chairman, followed by the Holy Assembly's vice-chairman. Would it be the Xingtian Alliance's vice-chairman next? Nie Tian, your increase in strength has exceeded my expectations. Therefore, I can only take action personally. Nangong Duxiu looked cold at Nie Tian. His eyes were as vicious as a wolf's. Nie Tian took a deep breath and calmed himself down. He now understood why Fat Cat had panicked earlier. It was because he had discovered Nangong Duxiu. Nangong Duxiu was truly despicable. It was obvious that he had been hiding in the dark, but he had not taken action. He had allowed Ren Quanqian to kill Nie Tian. Then, when Ren Quanqian and Nie Tian both suffered heavy injuries, he would launch a sneak attack and kill Ren Quanqian. Now, he only needed to kill Nie Tian, and everything would be perfect. I did not expect the Holy Assembly's vice-chairman to personally appear, Nie Tian said indifferently, but he could not calm down. With his current strength, he could not fight Nangong Dushio. Therefore, there was only one way for him to survive, and that was to escape. At this time, Little Fat Cat's intelligence was displayed. He had already prepared an escape route for Jun Aoqing in advance. As Nie Tian spoke, he paid attention to Yu Ji Wushuang and Yu Qingqi's positions. They were very close to Jun Aoqing, so there should be no problem. The only problem now was Nie Tian himself. He was tens of thousands of meters away from Jun Aoqing. If Jun Aoqing immediately opened the spatial channel, he would not be able to rush over. Moreover, with Nangong Dushio's strength, she would not allow Nie Tian to run tens of thousands of meters away in an instant. Nie Tian, Nangong Dushio is not the only one you need to worry about. At this moment, Fat Cat's voice resounded in Nie Tian's consciousness again. What do you mean? Nie Tian was stunned. He immediately thought of something and his expression changed. There are other people hiding in the void. Fat Cat said with a trembling voice, this person's strength is not inferior to Nangong Dushio's. Nie Tian's pupils shrank and his face grew grim. How could he have imagined that there was another expert lurking in the void around him? Moreover, this expert's strength was not inferior to Nangong Dushio's. QL11 Nangong Dushio alone was already troublesome enough. Now that there was another lurker, how could Nie Tian escape this predicament? At this moment, the corners of Nangong Dushio's mouth suddenly twitched as she spoke coldly, Scale Lord, do it. At the same time, Nie Tian suddenly shouted, Jun Aoqing, get ready to leave. As soon as the two voices rang out, the void trembled slightly and a black figure appeared like a ghost. Swoosh! Immediately, a black claw shot out like an arrow and attacked Nie Tian. In the blink of an eye, Nie Tian felt a bone-piercing coldness assaulting him. The aura of death was so real that his pupils couldn't help but tremble. Chapter 2477. The Master of the Reverse Scale. Nie Tian instantly realized that the black figure was the strongest expert of the reverse scale, one of the three mysterious organizations of the 9 regions, the Master of the Reverse Scale. Fat Cat had said that this person was no weaker than Nangong Dushio. In the 9 regions, there were only a handful of people stronger than Nangong Dushio. Nangong Dushio had addressed this person as the Master of the Reverse Scale, which undoubtedly meant that this person was the Master of the Reverse Scale. Nie Tian would never have imagined that not only would Ren Quanchen and Nangong Dushio appear, but even the legendary Master of the Reverse Scale had appeared in order to kill him. Nie Tian could not imagine how powerful the Master of the Reverse Scale was. Facing the Master of the Reverse Scale's ultimate attack, Nie Tian reacted instantly. In the blink of an eye, he activated all of his defenses. A layer of white radiance appeared around his body as he activated the Extreme Yang Sky Battle Armor. QL11 surges of astral energy gushed out as the Astral Soul Shield and Astral Soul Armor appeared simultaneously. However, these were not enough. Nie Tian's body shook as the 9 bone-eroding soul shackling chains appeared simultaneously. They intertwined and formed a soul-shackling shield around his body. In the next instant, a terrifying black claw appeared and descended towards Nie Tian. The black claw did not seem to have much power, but the sharp aura it exuded was extremely frightening. Bang! 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 The instant the black claw descended, 3 muffled sounds could be heard. The Extreme Yang Sky Battle Armor, Star Soul Shield, and Star Soul Armor were directly shattered. Bang! Whoosh! Following which, the black claw suddenly slashed downwards, and a crisp cracking sound could be heard in the air. The 9 bone-eroding soul shackling chains around Nie Tian's body were shattered, turning into incantation runes and disappearing in the air. However, the black claw had also suffered from the impact, and its power had been greatly weakened. At this moment, Star Soul Wings appeared on Nie Tian's back. When they suddenly unfolded, they were hundreds of meters long. He flapped his wings and instantly retreated. In the next moment, the black claws morphed into 3 sharp black blades that slashed into Nie Tian's chest, leaving 3 gashes so deep that bones could be seen. Nie Tian didn't care at all. His figure retreated 1,000 meters away, finally putting some distance between them. Nie Tian. Jun Aoqing couldn't help exclaiming when she saw Nie Tian's injury. Don't worry about me. Open the passage and get ready to leave. Nie Tian endured the pain in his chest and shouted. Jun Aoqing froze for a moment. After that, she stabbed out with her sword, and a space-time sword shadow appeared in the air, instantly forming a space-time gate. Silly 9, run! This time, Yu Qingqi reacted very quickly. With a loud shout, his figure flashed, and he was the first to step into the spatial gate. Yu Ji and Wu Shuang came to their senses. Their huge figures dashed over and entered the gate of time and space. Jun Aoqing's beautiful eyes flickered. She was extremely nervous. She used her sword intent to spread and opened a space-time gate that was 10,000 meters away. However, with her sword intent, she wouldn't be able to maintain it for long. At most, it would be a few seconds. Therefore, Nie Tian immediately rushed over. I'm coming! Nie Tian flapped his wings and his figure instantly moved, rushing towards Jun Aoqing. Nangong Duxiu and the Lord of the Reverse Scale were startled by this sudden scene. They exclaimed in surprise. The two of them had never expected that Nie Tian would survive the sneak attack of the Lord of the Reverse Scale. Nie Tian's reaction was too fast. It was as if he had already known that the Lord of the Reverse Scale would sneak attack him. Indeed, Nie Tian had already known that someone was hiding. Therefore, he had released all the power in his body and instantly activated it. If he hadn't done so, the Lord of the Reverse Scale's attack would have killed him. He didn't die. The Lord of the Reverse Scale reacted and spoke in a cold tone. His eyes were as dark as the abyss as they firmly locked onto Nie Tian. He wants to escape, stop him. Nangong Duxiu was startled. Bean-sized beads of sweat seeped out of his forehead as he shouted frantically. In the next moment, he and the Lord of the Reverse Scale moved at the same time. They were as fast as the wind and lightning. The two of them attacked while they were still in midair. Boom! Nangong Duxiu sent out a palm strike. Boundless thunderbolt power descended and turned into a 10,000-meter-long thunderbolt net that enveloped Nie Tian. Boom! The Lord of the Reverse Scale also sent out a palm strike. A black radiance pierced through the sky and turned into a black claw that attacked Nie Tian. The two of them were peak God Realm experts. Therefore, the power of their attacks was unimaginable. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that if Nie Tian was hit by either of the two attacks, he would definitely die. Nie Tian, be careful. Jun Aoqing's eyes trembled as she saw this scene from the side. Nie Tian's eyes suddenly focused. Blood qi was released from his body. At the same time, sword intent surged around his body. The starry heaven slash in his hand flickered with sword radiance. At this moment, he entered a mysterious state. The entire world seemed to have quietened down. There was only him and the surging sword intent in every corner. At this moment, Nie Tian actually closed his eyes. His consciousness seemed to have entered another world. The surrounding space was very familiar. Nie Tian once again returned to the tripartite sacred array. Brat, you're dead. Nangong Duxiu could clearly see that Nie Tian had closed his eyes. She couldn't help but roar. It was as though she could already see the scene of Nie Tian being blasted to smithereens. But at this moment, Nie Tian's eyes suddenly opened. Earth sword, moon devouring. Then, the corners of Nie Tian's mouth twitched. The starry heaven slash was unleashed. Endless sword intent and blood qi condensed and fused. A sword shadow rumbled out with a majestic momentum that could devour the heaven and earth. This sword move was a sword move that Nie Tian had never used before. Sacred heaven-defying sword's second move, Earth Sword Devouring. When his consciousness entered the tripartite sacred array, he had a new understanding of the sacred heaven-defying sword. Moreover, his sword Tao realm had just advanced. Therefore, he could use the earth sword devouring at his limit. Boom! In the next moment, the majestic sword's shadow collided with the black claws, and a loud explosion rang out in the air. Bang! Then, the sword's shadow crumbled. The black claw received the impact and turned back into a black radiance that attacked. Nie Tian didn't care. He raised his head and looked at the lightning net that was about to fall. If he was hit by the lightning net, he would be smithereens in his current state. Demon Eye, open! At this moment, a black radiance surged out from Nie Tian's right eye. It was like a sharp arrow that was released from a bow. At this moment, a dark aura spread out and filled the surrounding space. Bang! In the next moment, the cold black radiance pierced through the lightning net and left a hole that was a few hundred meters long. The corners of Nie Tian's mouth twitched. He turned to look at Jun Aoqing. PFFF! But at this moment, a black radiance fell from the sky and pierced through his shoulder. Ah! Nie Tian screamed in pain as pain spread through his entire body. However, the wings on his back trembled and he flew towards Jun Aoqing. Nangong Duxiu and the Lord of the Reverse Scale were both stunned. They were extremely shocked. They didn't expect that Nie Tian would be able to find a chance of survival when the two of them were working together. At this moment, the two of them moved again and rushed towards Nie Tian. Nie Tian's figure swayed in the air. He was relying on the astral soul wings to maintain his balance. He was getting closer and closer to Jun Aoqing. 1,000 meters. 100 meters. 10 meters. Chapter 2478. Just as Nie Tian and Jun Aoqing disappeared, the space-time gate closed up and the space returned to normal. Nangong Duxiu and the Lord of the Reverse Scale landed almost at the same time, but they were too late. The two of them stared at the empty space, their faces as ugly as eggplants and chrysanthemums. One of them was the Deputy President of the Sacred Parliament, while the other was the Lord of the Reverse Scale. They were both top figures in the 9 major dominions. The two of them had appeared at the same time, but Nie Tian had escaped. At this moment, the two of them felt a sense of shame, as though they had been toyed with. They had never imagined that a late-stage paramount god would be able to escape from two peak god realm martial artists. It was unbelievable. If this matter were to spread, the martial artists of the 9 major dominions would probably laugh their heads off. Damn it! Nangong Duxiu suddenly roared. His entire body seemed to have gone mad, and his face was distorted into a terrifying malevolence. The Lord of the Reverse Scale did not react much, but he was also shocked. This was the first time he had fought with Nie Tian, and the result was unexpected. It was no wonder that the 13 thorns of the Reverse Scale had all died at the hands of Nie Tian. President Nangong, don't be angry. The Lord of the Reverse Scale smiled faintly and said, "That kid was hit by my black scale curse chi. He won't live." Nangong Duxiu frowned, but he did not speak. If not for the special status of the Lord of the Reverse Scale, he would have already started cursing. Nie Tian had the god-fiend origin embryo. How could a mere black scale curse chi kill Nie Tian? In short, Nangong Duxiu felt that as long as he did not see Nie Tian's corpse, he would not believe that Nie Tian was dead. At the same time, in a dark area, several figures were floating in the air. Nie Tian, are you all right? Jun Aoqing was supporting Nie Tian and asked nervously. Nie Tian shook his head slightly, but his expression was very unsightly. At the last moment, he had used the moon-swallowing earth sword to block the Lord of the Reverse Scale's attack. Then, he forcefully used his devil eye to break Nangong Duxiu's attack. Moreover, he had used a large amount of blood chi in his battle with Rin Quanchen. In addition, the Lord of the Reverse Scale had left 3 bloody wounds on his chest, and his shoulder had also been pierced through. Therefore, his current condition was very poor. However, with his recovery ability, as long as it wasn't a fatal injury, he should be able to recover quickly. However, the 3 bloody wounds on his chest and the pierced shoulder did not recover, and they were still bleeding non-stop. The attack of the Lord of the Reverse Scale is strange, Nie Tian thought to himself, but in order to not worry Jun Aoqing, he still persisted. Nie Tian, hold on. You should be hit by a type of curse energy. At this moment, the fat cat's voice rang out, we've arrived at the connection between the God-forbidding realm and the frozen ruins. Let's leave this place and enter the frozen ruins first. Yes. Nie Tian nodded, then took out the space-time scroll given to him by Elder Hua and handed it to Jun Aoqing. However, at that very moment, Yu Qingqi took a step forward and stopped Nie Tian. With a cold smile on his face, he said, Lord Nie Tian, you're seriously injured. Why don't you leave the rest to me? Nie Tian was startled. Then, his gaze turned serious, and his eyes were filled with dense killing intent. Yu Qingqi's eyes trembled when he felt the cold killing intent. He was so scared that his face turned pale, and he subconsciously took a few steps back. He didn't expect that Nie Tian would still have such dense killing intent even though he was heavily injured. He originally thought that since Nie Tian was injured, he would listen to him. But now it seemed that he was wrong. Yu Qingqi, I'll give you the space-time scroll now. At this moment, Nie Tian stretched out his hand, but his eyes were filled with dense killing intent. He said coldly, but you have to think about it. Do you really want it? Yu Qingqi's eyes trembled, and his face turned even paler. He waved his hand and said, Nie? Lord Nie Tian, I don't want it. I don't want it. Yu Qingqi, you'd better know your place. If you do something like this again, I'm afraid you'll die. Nie Tianling laughed, then handed the space-time scroll to Jun Aoqing. QL11 Yu Qingqi's strength was too weak, and he didn't know his place. Not to mention that he couldn't compete with Nie Tian, even Jun Aoqing could kill him in an instant. Even if Nie Tian was really injured to the point where he couldn't command the others, it should be Jun Aoqing who took over everything. It shouldn't be Yu Qingqi's turn. Seventh brother, this person is so powerful, Yu Ji Wushuang, who was beside Yu Qingqi, said in a low, muffled voice. Get lost. Yu Qingqi scolded angrily with an impatient expression. Nie Tian glanced at him, but he didn't say anything. This Yu Qingqi really didn't know what was good for him. If Yu Ji Wushuang hadn't intervened just now, he would have died. Moreover, no matter how stupid Yu Ji Wushuang was, he was still his brother. This guy didn't treat Yu Ji Wushuang like an elder brother at all. Instead, he hated Yu Ji Wushuang. After a while, Jun Aoqing used the space-time scroll to open a space-time tunnel. Nie Tian and the others didn't hesitate, and they stepped into the space-time tunnel. The next moment they landed and they found themselves in a strange world. Is this the frozen relic? Nie Tian looked around, his eyebrows slightly furrowed. At this moment they were in a mountain range, surrounded by towering trees and huge rocks. What puzzled Nie Tian was that the rocks and trees here were actually bigger than those in the 9 realms. Moreover, the divine energy in the space here was even stronger than in the 9 realms. Nie Tian couldn't figure out why. He had thought that the divine energy in the 9 realms would be stronger. After all, the 9 realms had 9 great source powers. Another strange thing was that this realm was called the Frozen Ruins. Nie Tian had thought that it would be a world of ice and snow. At this moment, before Nie Tian had time to observe too much, the fat cat's voice rang out, Nie Tian, find a place first. I want to examine your injuries. Okay. Nie Tian nodded, and he prepared to find a safe place to examine his injuries. At this moment, the 3 bloody wounds on his chest and the bloody hole on his shoulder were no longer bleeding, but they hadn't healed. Nie Tian felt a strange power surging in his body. It was as if thousands of ants were wriggling in his limbs and veins. This feeling was extremely uncomfortable. He had been hit by the Lord of the Reverse Scale's Black Scale Curse. It was extremely terrifying. If he didn't treat it in time, once the curse spread throughout his body, he would rot and die. However, just as Nye Tian and the others were about to leave, a voice rang out, "The people in front, stop." Immediately, a figure descended from the sky and landed in front of Nye Tian and the others, blocking their way. Nye Tian was stunned. Looking at the man in white in front of him, he immediately understood that this person was hiding in a tree. "Young Master Hua, wait for me." Soon after, a coy voice rang out. Another figure descended and landed beside the white-robed man. It was a woman in pink. This pink-clothed woman was very beautiful and seductive, and her body was hot. Moreover, at this moment, her clothes were disheveled. Under her almost transparent clothes, one could see a scene that would make people want to vomit blood. "You are." Yu Qingqi was stunned for a second, and suddenly shouted, as if he had suddenly realized something. Nye Tianling gave Yu Qingqi a cold glance, and the latter immediately shrank back. Even a fool couldn't tell what the man in white and the woman in pink were hiding in the tree. Did Yu Qingqi need to remind them? Move! Nye Tian didn't want to talk nonsense. He didn't care what the man in white and the woman in pink were doing. He just wanted to treat his injuries as soon as possible. Chapter 2479. The white-garbed man's eyes glittered with greed, and his lascivious gaze was fixed on Jun Aoqing. Nye Tian's eyebrows furrowed, and his face instantly darkened. This white-garbed man was definitely a slut, having an illicit affair with a woman in broad daylight. This kind of person looking at Jun Aoqing was blasphemy. "Get the hell out of here!" Nye Tian bellowed. His eyes shone with a fierce light, as if he were a ferocious wolf. He had just arrived in the frozen ruins, and didn't want to cause any unnecessary trouble. Therefore, he was being very polite to the white-garbed man. The white-garbed man said, surprised. Chuckling coldly, he said, "Do you know who I am, you white-haired punk? Are you tired of living? How dare you talk to me like that? Last chance. Screw off." Nye Tian said, his expression grim and murderous. The white-garbed man's eyes narrowed as he sensed the intense killing intent. Shifting his gaze from Jun Aoqing to Nye Tian, he chuckled coldly and said, "A crippled cat like you dares to act so arrogantly? I'm very curious to know who gave you the gall to do this?" Nye Tian was gravely injured, but his rage and killing intent were even more intense. Seeing that Nye Tian was injured, the white-garbed man grew even more arrogant. "Are you looking to die?" Nye Tian's gaze suddenly turned cold, and he could no longer suppress the rage in his body. He suddenly took a step forward, and a violent aura blasted out, directly forcing the white-clothed man to take a few steps back. "What?" the white-garbed man said, his expression flickering with shock. Never could he have guessed that Nye Tian's energy would be so strong. He was clearly a late paramount god, just like Nye Tian. How could Nye Tian, who was seriously injured, be able to put such pressure on him? Splat! However, that was when Nye Tian shivered and coughed up a mouthful of blood, his face turning even paler. "QL 11-inch Nye Tian, the curse energy in your body is very strong. Don't forcefully circulate your vital meridians anymore." In his divine sense, the fat cat's voice rang out. Nye Tian was afflicted with the black scale curse chi. The circulation of his elemental meridians would cause the curse chi to circulate and corrode his body. Seeing Nye Tian vomit blood, the white-robed man couldn't help but sneer. Then, he locked his gaze onto Jun Aoqing and said, "White-haired brat, you can leave if you want, but let this little girl stay. Consider it my compensation. You dog, you're courting death." As soon as the man in white finished speaking, before Nye Tian could say anything, Jun Aoqing let out a delicate shout and her figure instantly moved. Whoosh! In the next moment, the sword light flashed, and a bloody light appeared in the air. The white-robed man's head flew into the air. The eyeballs on the head flickered with extreme shock. Unfortunately, the white-robed man didn't even have the chance to scream in pain. Jun Aoqing's attack was like a ghost, catching people off guard. Even a peak paramount god would be killed on the spot, not to mention that the white-robed man was only a late-stage paramount god. The sudden scene caused the crowd to freeze on the spot in a daze. Yu Qingqi's expression was one of extreme shock. His lips trembled, but he couldn't make a sound. He had originally thought that Jun Aoqing was just a burden by Nie Tian's side. He never thought that this seemingly weak little girl would have such shocking strength. Ah! At this time, the pink-robed woman finally reacted and screamed. "Let's go," Nie Tian said indifferently, ignoring the pink-robed woman, and turned to leave. The white-robed man's death was completely his own fault. Nie Tian and the others didn't even notice his existence. He was the one who jumped out to provoke Jun Aoqing. Jun Aoqing had a staunch character. How could she tolerate someone being so frivolous to her? Young Master Hua is dead? The pink-robed woman only calmed down after Nie Tian and the others had completely disappeared. She looked at the corpse on the ground and spoke in a trembling voice. The white-robed man was called Hua Zigui. He had an extraordinary status. He was the grandson of the 10,000 Mountain Sect's Hall of Enforcement's Grand Elder. Hurry up and report this to Lord Sect Leader." The pink-robed woman screamed as she sobered up a little. She grabbed Hua Zigui's corpse and ran away. At the same time, Nie Tian and the others entered a valley. "Nie Tian, are you alright?" Jun Aoqing asked worriedly as she supported Nie Tian. She could feel a burning aura coming from his body. "I'm fine." Nie Tian nodded slightly and said while enduring the pain. He felt a burning pain in his body. The terrifying curse qi was wreaking havoc in his body, making his meridians feel like they were going to rot. "Yu Qingqi, take Yu Ji and Wu Shuang and stand guard outside the valley. I need to rest." Nie Tian sat cross-legged in the valley and said to Yu Qingqi. "Yes." Yu Qingqi replied. He then asked Yu Ji and Wu Shuang to stand guard outside the valley. Puff! At that moment, Nie Tian's body trembled and he spat out a mouthful of blood. It was dirty and black, as if he had been severely poisoned. Jun Aoqing cried out in shock when she realized how serious Nie Tian's injuries were. Nie Tian. Nie Tian waved his hand slightly to indicate that he was fine. The Lord of the Reverse Scale's Black Scale Curse Qi was very strong. Even with Nie Tian's martial body, it was difficult for him to endure. If it wasn't for Nie Tian's strong martial body, he would have been corroded by the Black Scale Curse Qi. Nie Tian, hold on. At that moment, the fat cat's figure appeared and carefully sensed Nie Tian. Its eyes trembled slightly and it released a stream of azure qi that flowed into Nie Tian's body. The azure qi flowed in and stimulated the Black Scale Curse Qi, causing Nie Tian to fall into even greater pain. The fat cat withdrew the azure qi and frowned. This curse qi has a strange attribute. It contains both the dark and fire attribute. It's very difficult. Lord Chinchilla, do you have a way to cure Nie Tian? Jun Aoqing's beautiful eyes flashed and she asked nervously. The fat cat's face was dignified. It's troublesome to expel the curse qi. You must use a medicinal herb that contains both the light and water attributes to neutralize the curse qi. The Black Scale Curse Qi contained both the dark and fire attribute. Only a medicinal herb that contained both the light and water attributes could cure it. Even if Nie Tian's martial body was strong, if he couldn't be cured, he could only hold on for 3 days at most. There are many medicinal herbs in the 9 superbs, but there are no medicinal herbs that contain both the light and water attribute. The fat cat shook its head. I'll go find it. Jun Aoqing's eyes trembled. She turned around and left. Aoqing. At that moment, Nie Tian shouted and stopped Jun Aoqing. Don't worry, I'll be fine. Jun Aoqing knew that Nie Tian was worried about her, so she said with a firm look. Nie Tian, let her go. The fat cat also spoke at this time. With her strength, she'll be fine. Nie Tian thought for a moment and finally nodded. His current state was too bad, so he could only rely on Jun Aoqing. Jun Aoqing's strength was not weak. Coupled with the space-time swordsman, even if she encountered a powerful enemy, she still had the ability to protect herself. Chapter 2480. Nie Tian looked in the direction that Jun Aoqing had left with a heavy heart. He had not expected that he would end up like this right after coming to the frozen ruins. He still had to rely on Jun Aoqing. Nangong Duxiu, master of the reverse scale. When I return to the 9 domains, it will be time for you to die. Nie Tian said with a heavy heart. His eyes were filled with killing intent. His current state was all thanks to Nangong Duxiu and the master of the reverse scale. With his strength, it was already a heaven-defying feat for him to be able to escape from the hands of 2 pinnacle powerhouses. Nie Tian, you don't have to worry. I believe that Jun Lass will definitely bring back the herbs you need. Fat Cat knew that Nie Tian was worried about Jun Aoqing, so it comforted him. Nie Tian nodded and did not say anything else. He calmed down and started to slowly recover. In the blink of an eye, 2 days passed. Nie Tian and the others were still waiting in the valley, but Jun Aoqing had not returned. It's been 2 days. Nothing happened to Jun Aoqing, right? Nie Tian paced back and forth in the valley. He was extremely frustrated. The wounds on his chest and shoulder had already healed, but the black scale curse energy in his body had become even more berserk. Nie Tian's face was no longer pale. Instead, it had turned black and looked extremely frightening. He could feel that the black scale curse energy was slowly corroding his body. Even though Nie Tian had the earth vein source, the supreme dragon vein, the star origin stone, and other heaven-defying items, he still could not resist the black scale curse energy. Nie Tian, don't worry. In your current state, the more anxious you are, the stronger the curse energy in your body will become. Fat Cat reminded Nie Tian. Nie Tian took 3 deep breaths. Even though he wanted to calm down, he could not. QL11 He was worried about Jun Aoqing. If anything happened to her, he would never be able to forgive himself. I'm still too weak. Nie Tian sighed in his heart and became even more irritated. Only now did he realize that unknowingly, Jun Aoqing's weight in his heart had become so heavy. Half a day later, Jun Aoqing still hadn't returned. Nie Tian's condition worsened. His entire body had turned black, and there was even a rotten smell coming from his body. The black scale curse energy continuously eroded his blood, meridians, and bones, causing his martial body to become weaker and weaker. Why isn't this little girl back yet? At this time, even Fat Cat was anxious. With Nie Tian's current condition, he could only hold on for half a day at most. If he didn't receive treatment within half a day, Nie Tian would be in danger. Nie Tian, Lord Nie Tian, are you all right? On the other side of the valley, Yu Qingqi looked at Nie Tian in horror. If something happened to Nie Tian, it would be really troublesome. I'm fine. Nie Tian responded in a deep voice and tried to calm himself down. At this time, he could only wait. Someone's coming. At this time, Fat Cat suddenly exclaimed, and her dark blue eyes suddenly trembled. Jun Aoqing. Nie Tian's eyes became hot. His first reaction was that Jun Aoqing had returned. He forcefully released his divine sense and probed outside the valley. However, his expression changed and he cried out in shock, "It's someone else!" Nie Tian was very familiar with Jun Aoqing's aura. However, the aura coming from outside the valley was not Jun Aoqing at all. It was more than 10 auras mixed together. They seemed to be panicking, as if they were being chased by something. Roar! Just when Nie Tian was puzzled, a violent roar came from outside the valley. It sounded like some kind of large divine beast had come out. Nie, Lord Nie Tian, should we leave this place? Yu Qingqi also sensed that someone was coming and asked in a trembling voice. We can't leave. Nie Tian's gaze was fixed and he said in a deep voice. His current state was very bad and he urgently needed medical attention. Jun Aoqing only knew this place. If she returned and couldn't find Nie Tian and the others, wouldn't it be even worse? Yu Qingqi's expression turned ugly. He wanted to say something, but he swallowed his words. He missed the time when Nye Tian was not injured. With the latter around, he felt very at ease. Now that Nye Tian was injured, he always felt that it was not safe. Help! After a moment, a mournful cry for help came from outside the valley. It was a woman. Old Nine, you stay here and protect Lord Nye Tian. I'll go out and take a look. Yu Qingqi frowned and finally said something decent. All right. Yu Ji Wushuang nodded and chuckled. He said to Nye Tian, Lord Nye Tian, don't worry. With Wushuang here, no one can hurt you. Nye Tian nodded slightly and prepared to fight. Of the two brothers of the Yu family, one was cunning and the other was stupid. But at the critical moment they performed well. At the same time, outside the valley, more than a dozen figures were running madly toward the valley in panic. Huh! Yu Qingqi frowned slightly when he saw the figures. He was a little surprised. These warriors were all paramount gods, and there were even a few late-stage paramount gods. Right now, they were fleeing in panic. What was it that was chasing them? Help! One of the warriors was a young woman. When she saw Yu Qingqi, she shouted anxiously. Yu Qingqi frowned, but he didn't move. He wouldn't act rashly before he had a clear understanding of the situation. In the blink of an eye, more than a dozen warriors ran madly to the outside of the valley. And at this moment, Yu Qingqi finally saw what was chasing after these cultivators. Tens of thousands of meters away, more than a dozen figures flashed like lightning. What is that? Yu Qingqi was stunned. He didn't recognize the beast in front of him. The beast wasn't very large, only about 100 meters long. It looked like a giant wolf, but its body flickered with white light. Its aura was powerful, and it moved very quickly. That's a phantom demon wolf! The woman in the lead cried out in alarm. Then, she ran directly into the valley. A phantom demon wolf? Yu Qingqi was stunned and his face fell. At that moment, a phantom demon wolf rushed over, its sharp claws swiping viciously at Yu Qingqi. Bastard, you're courting death! Yu Qingqi reacted quickly. His eyes narrowed and he struck out with his palm. The palm whistled through the air, and its momentum was imposing. Bang! In the next moment, a muffled sound rang out in the air. The phantom demon wolf was sent flying by Yu Qingqi's palm. However, the phantom demon wolf's bestial body was extremely tough, and it wasn't injured at all. After stabilizing itself, it glared at Yu Qingqi, its eyes blazing with cold light. This bastard's bestial body is so strong. Yu Qingqi's expression darkened. He had never imagined that the phantom demon wolf would be so strong. Based on his initial estimates, the phantom demon wolf's battle prowess was comparable to a mid-paramount god, and its bestial body was comparable to a late or peak paramount god. Right at that moment, Yu Qingqi suddenly raised his head. His expression instantly froze, and a gulping sound came from his throat. Off in the distance, waves of phantom demon wolves were charging in their direction, like a white wave. There were at least several thousand phantom demon wolves in the area. Chapter 2481. Oh no! Yu Qingqi looked at the pack of wolves, his eyes trembling. His expression was one of extreme horror. If there were only a few dozen phantom demon wolves, he and Yu Ji Wushuang would have been able to deal with them. But now, there were thousands of phantom demon wolves in front of them, and the larger ones were obviously stronger. They were probably comparable to peak paramount gods. What exactly had those 10 or so cultivators done to attract so many phantom demonic wolves to hunt them down? At the same time, Nye Tian, Yu Ji Wushuang, and Yu Ji Wushuang were in the valley. When they saw the warriors suddenly rushing toward them, their expressions changed. But then, they felt the ground shake. The whole valley was shaking violently, as if it was about to collapse. What's going on? Yu Ji Wushuang asked, his face stiff. He seemed very panicked. The warriors glanced at Nye Tian and Yu Ji Wushuang, then looked into the valley. Their faces were filled with panic. They had never thought that this was a dead end. They were now trapped in the valley by the phantom demon wolves. At that moment, Yu Qingqi ran back in panic and shouted, "Lord Nietian, let's run!" Nietian frowned and asked in a low voice, "What's going on outside? Is it a beast tide?" He felt a violent wave surging toward them. It was very frightening, very much like a beast tide. If it really was a beast tide, Nietian and the others would be in trouble. They were stuck in the valley and couldn't charge out. "Lord Nietian, it's a pack of phantom demon wolves. They seem to have gone crazy, and they are rushing toward the valley." Yu Qingqi shouted. He was drenched in cold sweat. He was obviously very frightened. A pack of phantom demon wolves? Nietian was stunned. Then, he felt the ground shake even more violently. The whole valley shook even more violently, as if it was about to collapse at any moment. At that moment, the woman in purple said in a trembling voice, her face full of despair, "No, we don't have a chance. We can't get out." Ignoring the woman in purple, Nietian turned to Yu Ji Wushuang and said, "Yu Ji Wushuang, follow me." Yu Ji and Wushuang agreed and followed closely behind Nietian. When the two of them arrived outside the valley, they saw countless phantom demonic wolves everywhere they looked. These phantom demon wolves had actually surrounded the entire valley. Damn it! Nietian frowned as he cursed in his heart. He did not leave the valley just now, but now it was impossible for him to leave. Nietian's gaze swept over the pack of phantom demonic wolves, and his heart sank even more when he used his divine sense. In his estimation, the phantom devil wolf was definitely an 8th-order godbeast, and its aura was comparable to a mid-paramount god. Their auras were even stronger than those of late paramount gods. What was even more troublesome was that a divine beast's body was far more frightening than a human's. Hence, these phantom demonic wolves were very difficult to kill. Roar! At this time, a giant demon wolf howled. Its two fangs flashed with a cold light, and its wolf eyes were incomparably fierce. In the next moment, dozens of phantom demonic wolves moved at the same time. Like streaks of white lightning, they pounced at Nietian and Yu Ji Wushuang. "Get out of my way!" Without waiting for Nietian to make a move, Yu Ji Wushuang took a step forward, roared, and directly punched out. Wherever the fist passed, blood splattered everywhere. One of the phantom demonic wolves was directly punched into meat paste by Yu Ji Wushuang. Yu Ji Wushuang's martial body was abnormally strong. His dual bloodline martial body was even stronger than the phantom demonic wolf's beast body. On the other side, Nietian took out the Starlight Heaven Slash, and with a wild slash, the sword whistled like a dragon and directly killed several phantom demonic wolves. But at the same time, the figure of a phantom demonic wolf landed, leaving a bloody wound on Nietian's chest. Nietian retreated a few meters, spitting out a mouthful of filthy blood. If he were in peak condition, ordinary phantom demonic wolves would not be able to get within 100 meters of him. Unfortunately, his physical condition was very poor. Every time he circulated his key meridians, it would stimulate the power of the Black Scale Curse energy. Lord Nietian. Seeing that Nietian was injured, Yu Ji Wushuang hurriedly retreated and shouted. Nietian stabilized his body, and his expression was extremely gloomy. He felt that his body was becoming weaker and weaker under the corrosion of the Black Scale Curse energy. But at this moment, dozens of phantom demonic wolves attacked again, their figures extremely fast, like the wind and lightning. "Damn it!" Nietian roared, and the sword will in his body rose. His entire body was like a giant sword. 8 Desolation Sword! He forcefully circulated his key meridians and slashed down with his sword. The sword will in his body instantly condensed, and a sword shadow that was thousands of meters long appeared. It was like a flowing waterfall, pouring down in torrent. Bang! 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 The sword shadow fell, and endless muffled sounds rang out. Dozens of phantom demonic dragons were directly submerged by the sword shadow and turned into a bloody light. "This guy is so strong," the violet-garbed young woman exclaimed. Her eyes flickered, and she couldn't help but cry out in astonishment. She could tell that Nye Tian was only a late paramount god, and that he was seriously injured. Considering the circumstances, it was completely inconceivable that Nye Tian would be able to unleash such terrifying power with a single sword strike. As the terrifying sword descended, Nye Tian's figure suddenly trembled, and he took a few steps back, almost falling to the ground. He had forced his key meridians to operate, which had caused the black scale curse energy to go berserk. Inside of him, streams of black scale curse energy were wreaking havoc, corroding his meridians and meridians. If Nye Tian examined himself with his own eyes, he would find that his blood, meridians, and bones had all become tainted and black. That was a sign that the black scale curse energy had penetrated deep into his bones. If Nye Tian didn't receive treatment in half an hour, he would be in grave danger. Nye Tian, exalted Nye Tian, are you all right? Yu Qingqi couldn't help but panic when he saw that Nye Tian's condition had worsened. QL11 face tense, Nye Tian struggled to keep his balance, but didn't say a word. You've been poisoned, the violet-garbed woman said, looking at Nye Tian in utter shock. Never in her wildest dreams could she have guessed that Nye Tian would be so seriously injured. Nye Tian's face darkened as he swept his gaze across the phantom demon wolves. At this moment, a very strange situation occurred. All of the phantom demon wolves seemed to have calmed down. Countless pairs of wolf eyes locked onto the purple-clothed woman, releasing a cold light. When Nye Tian noticed that, his face darkened. Looking over at the violet-garbed woman, he asked in a cold voice, "What did you do?" All of the phantom devil wolves had been attracted by the violet-garbed woman and her companions. As soon as the violet-garbed woman appeared, all of the phantom devil wolves turned to stare at her, their eyes shining with murderous light. It was obvious that this purple-robed woman had done something to provoke the phantom demon wolf. I didn't do anything," she said, looking a bit flustered. Nye Tian's face darkened. How could he not tell that the violet-garbed woman was lying? Roar! 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 Right at that moment, howls could be heard. The gigantic devil wolves growled in a low voice, giving orders to their subordinates. Chapter 2482. Countless phantom demon wolves rained down from the sky like arrows, their target, the violet-robed woman. Nye Tian's eyes narrowed, and his expression darkened. In his current state, he couldn't kill all of the phantom demon wolves, but he could still protect himself. If he retreated now, he could at least ensure that he wouldn't die. But if he did that, the violet-robed woman would die beyond a shadow of a doubt. She wasn't weak, being a late-stage paramount god. But facing so many phantom demon wolves, there was no way she could stand up to them. If the phantom demon wolves fell, she wouldn't be able to survive. Screw it. In the blink of an eye, Nye Tian reacted. A violent shudder ran through him as sword intent and a terrifying flesh aura surged out of him. 12 heaven-slaying swords formation, activate. In the next moment, Nye Tian let out a bellow, and 12 sword projections suddenly appeared around him. Their sword intent soared into the heavens like dragons. With his martial body at its limit, Nye Tian forcibly activated the 12 heaven-slaying swords formation. Boom! 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 12 sword shadows, like dragons breaking through the abyss, rushed up to the sky, and the powerful sword aura suddenly burst out, surging in the void. QL11 Nye Tian raised the starry heaven/high into the air, and the 12 sword projections merged together to form a gigantic sword projection that was 5,000 meters long. The violet-robed woman and the others were completely shaken to the core, and their eyes trembled. They could never have imagined that a late-stage paramount god, with his martial body at its limit, could explode with such terrifying power. Die! Nye Tian roared, his face as black as that of a god of death. Boom! The huge sword shadow crashed down like a mountain collapsing in an instant. A power that was as vast as the sea was released, and the surrounding void was shaken. This kind of power was simply too shocking. Rumble. Crack. 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 The next moment, the sword projection crashed down, splitting the earth 1,000 meters wide. Boulders crumbled, and vegetation turned to ash. Hundreds of phantom demonic wolves were sent flying by the sword-intent berserk wolf's attack, shrieking in pain. After a long time, the violent waves in the air gradually dispersed, and the pack of demon wolves was actually forcefully pushed back several hundred meters. Everyone's eyes trembled as they stared at a blood-red figure. That figure was drenched in blood. However, his blood was not red, but black and emitted a pungent smell. This figure was none other than Nye Tian. He forcefully activated the 12 heavens slaying sword formation, causing his blood to flow in the opposite direction. The aura of the black scales seeped into his bones and tore open countless small bloody wounds all over his body. It was extremely terrifying. Yu Qingqi, who was standing off to the side, finally snapped back to reality and called out nervously, "Lord Nye Tian." He sensed that Nye Tian's breath was faintly discernible. He was truly worried that the latter would suddenly collapse. Nye Tian stood his ground, his body not swaying at all. "Why did he save me?" The purple-robed woman spoke with a blank expression, her expression filled with confusion. Just now, Nye Tian clearly could have dodged, but he had not done so. Instead, he had saved the purple-robed woman. After that sword strike, Nye Tian had completely reached his limit. Right now, it was extremely difficult for him to even move a single step. Roar! But at this moment, the low howls of the phantom demonic wolves rang out once more. Giant demonic wolves walked over step by step, their ferocious eyes still locked onto the purple-robed woman. Nye Tian's sword strike had only blocked the attack of the demonic wolves, but the number of demonic wolves that had actually been killed was very few. And now, those giant demonic wolves seemed to be preparing to personally attack. Ordinary phantom demonic wolves were only 100 meters long, but these dozens of demonic wolves were 400 to 500 meters long. They should be at the Wolf King level. Nye Tian's eyes trembled as he struggled to turn around to look at the purple-robed woman. He said in a deep voice, "What did you do?" These phantom demonic wolves were clearly charging at the purple-robed woman. All of them were ferocious and ruthless. Nye Tian really couldn't figure out what the purple-robed woman had done to make these phantom demonic wolves so angry. I. The purple-robed woman's lips trembled. She looked like she was in a difficult position. She stammered, "I can't tell you. I used it to save my younger brother." "Save your younger brother?" Nye Tian was dazed for a second, and his face was full of confusion. Could it be that the purple-robed woman had taken something from the phantom demonic wolves? That's why the demonic wolves were chasing her so crazily. Roar! Nye Tian wanted to continue asking, but right at this moment, dozens of demonic wolf kings growled at the same time. Then, they moved in unison, and like sharp white arrows, they pounced towards the purple-robed woman. Help! In an instant, the purple-robed woman felt the cold, killing intent. Her eyes trembled, and she screamed in panic. Nye Tian's eyes narrowed, and his face turned completely black. At this moment, even if he wanted to save her, he didn't have the strength to do so. Not to mention dozens of demonic wolf kings, even an ordinary phantom demonic wolf could easily kill Nye Tian. Be careful! At this critical moment, an explosive roar sounded. Then, a huge figure rushed over. It was Yu Ji Wushuang. Bang! Yu Ji Wushuang threw a punch, and it landed heavily on the body of a demonic wolf king, sending it flying. Unfortunately, Yu Ji Wushuang couldn't stop dozens of demonic wolf kings at the same time. Another demonic wolf king pounced ferociously, and its cold, sharp claws were about to land on the purple-robed woman's body. At this critical moment of life and death, a strange scene occurred. Boom! The void suddenly shook, and then, a shapeless sword shadow flashed past. The dozens of demonic wolf kings' bodies suddenly stopped, as if they had been frozen in space. Jun ouching! The sudden scene caused Nye Tian's eyes to tremble, and his eyes revealed an unconcealable passion. Of course, he could tell that the sword shadow just now was a space-time sword shadow, and it had directly frozen space. The person who could do such a thing was, of course, Jun Aoqing. Nye Tian, I'm back. The next moment, a clear voice sounded. It was Jun Aoqing. Jun Aoqing's figure landed, and she came to Nye Tian's side. When she sensed the latter's state, her eyes trembled, and she asked in shock, "What's going on? Aoqing, did you find the herb?" The corner of Nye Tian's mouth trembled slightly, and he spoke with difficulty. It was very difficult for him to even speak now. "I found it." Jun Aoqing nodded hurriedly, and with a flip of her palm, a crystal-clear, 7-colored flower appeared in the center of her palm. "It really is a light attribute and water attribute herb." The fat cat's voice sounded excitedly. Nye Tian nodded with difficulty, and his mouth opened slightly. Jun Aoqing picked up the 7-colored flower, and was about to let Nye Tian swallow it. "Stop!" But at this moment, the purple-robed woman cried out in shock and said loudly, "Why do you have the dew rainbow?" Jun Aoqing didn't care about the purple-robed woman at all, and directly put the 7-colored flower into Nye Tian's mouth. Nye Tian didn't hesitate, and swallowed the 7-colored flower. "You!" The purple-robed woman screamed, and her expression was very shocked. Chapter 2483. The lady in purple stood rooted to the ground, her face full of shock. Nye Tian ignored her. After consuming the dew rainbow, he took a deep breath, and his expression instantly softened. One had to admit that the power of the dew rainbow was very strong. It had a great impact on the black scale curse energy in Nye Tian's body, instantly weakening the curse energy. Bang! Crack, crack, crack. At this time, the solidified space shook a little, and then began to crack. "Everyone back off." Seeing this, Jun Aoqing frowned and said in a deep voice. Then, she released the space-time sword intent again, and the space that was about to crack was once again solidified by the sword intent. QL 11 dozens of demon wolf kings were trapped in the space, unable to move. With her strength, although she couldn't kill the demon wolf kings, she could still control them. Everyone backed off, but Nye Tian didn't move. Suddenly, he looked at the lady in purple and said in a deep voice, "Hand over the thing you took." What did I take?" The lady in purple was dazed for a moment, and said nervously, "Don't make me do it." Nye Tian said in a deep voice, his face as gloomy as water. As soon as he consumed the dew rainbow, he felt that the black scale curse energy had been completely washed away, and his complexion had returned to normal. He was shocked. What kind of flower was this dew rainbow? It contained so much power. He didn't know that the dew rainbow was the sacred flower of the 10,000 Mountain sect. Seeing Nye Tian's cold face, the lady in purple's face paled, and she couldn't help but take a few steps back. "Miss, you better hand over the thing." Nye Tian's eyes narrowed. He didn't want to scare the lady in purple, and said, "If you don't hand it over, then we'll leave. I don't think these phantom demon wolves are as easy to talk to as I am. Aoqing, let's go." Saying this, Nye Tian turned and prepared to leave. Don't go." Seeing that Nye Tian was really going to leave, the girl in purple screamed in fear. These phantom demon wolves were all controlled by Jun Aoqing. If Jun Aoqing left, the phantom demon wolves would tear her into pieces. Miss, let's return the Wolf Emperor to the wolf pack." At this moment, a cultivator stood up from behind the purple-clothed girl and said with a serious expression, "If we don't return the Wolf Emperor to the wolf pack will not rest." Wolf Emperor? Nye Tian stared blankly for a moment before understanding dawned upon him. As it turned out, the purple-robed woman was holding a phantom wolf emperor. This surprised him greatly, and he felt that it was inconceivable. Logically speaking, shouldn't the phantom wolf emperor be very powerful? How could the purple-clothed girl possibly take it away from the pack of wolves? The purple-clothed girl's beautiful eyes flickered, and there was a trace of moisture surging in her eyes. In order to obtain the Phantom Wolf Emperor, she and a few dozen subordinates had waited outside the wolf pack's territory day and night, observing the habits of the wolves. In the end, they had found a loophole and captured the Phantom Wolf Emperor. For this, she had sacrificed more than 20 of her companions. But now, she had to hand over the Wolf Emperor. How could she be willing to do that? Most importantly, she wanted to use the Wolf Emperor's blood to save her younger brother. Young lady, don't hesitate anymore. Hurry up. Nie Tian's complexion had improved quite a bit. In the blink of an eye, he had more or less recovered. He had noticed that Jun Aoqing couldn't hold on for much longer, so he said in a deep voice, "If the purple-clothed girl still didn't hand over the Phantom Wolf Emperor, then Nie Tian would have no choice but to take it by force." The purple-clothed girl hesitated for a long time before finally nodding. Then, she took out a spirit pet pouch and shook it lightly. A furry little fellow fell out of it. "This is the Wolf Emperor?" Nie Tian couldn't help but be stunned and speechless as he looked at the little fellow. The little fellow indeed had the appearance of a wolf cub, but its fur was pure white. However, there was a small tuft of scarlet fur on its forehead. "Yes." The purple-clothed girl nodded and said, "This is a wolf cub with the Wolf Emperor's bloodline. The red heart on its forehead is the Wolf Emperor's bloodline mark." Woo-woo. The little wolf cub bared its teeth and let out a few low growls, looking extremely ferocious. Awoof. At this moment, the appearance of the Wolf Emperor excited all the phantom demon wolves. They raised their heads to the sky and howled. Bang! At the same time, the dozens of demon wolf kings in the frozen space broke the frozen space at the same time. The dozens of demon wolf kings fell to the ground, but they didn't attack. Instead, they lay on the ground and deeply bowed their heads, bowing to the Wolf Emperor. Roar! The Wolf Emperor let out a low growl. Then, its small figure jumped onto the head of a demon wolf king. Nie Tian couldn't help but feel nervous when he saw this scene. If the Wolf Emperor refused to leave and ordered the phantom demon wolves to attack, then they would be in trouble. Fortunately, the pack of wolves didn't attack. Instead, they slowly retreated. After a short while, the thousands of phantom demon wolves disappeared. The purple-clothed girl looked in the direction where the pack of wolves disappeared with an expression of unwillingness. Phew! Nie Tian let out a deep breath of impure air. His tensed face relaxed a lot. He didn't expect that the crisis would be resolved just like that. Fortunately, Jun Aoqing came back in time. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Jun Aoqing also let out a long breath. Seeing that Nie Tian's complexion had recovered, she asked with a faint smile, "Nie Tian, are you all right?" "I'm fine." Nie Tian nodded with a smile. "Aoqing, it's all thanks to you this time." Jun Aoqing nodded slightly. Her pretty face blushed. She seemed to be a little shy. At this time, Nie Tian had almost recovered. He hadn't been seriously injured. It was just that he had been corroded by the black scale curse chi. That was why he was so weak. The dew rainbow dissolved the power of the black scale curse chi. Naturally, Nie Tian recovered. He was very surprised. How could the dew rainbow be so strong? After taking the dew rainbow, not only did he dissolve the black scale curse chi, but he also felt that his martial body had become stronger. "Young lady, what's your name?" Nie Tian became cold. He couldn't help but look at the girl in purple and asked lightly, "Where did you get your dew rainbow?" The girl in purple did not answer Nie Tian. Instead, she looked at Jun Aoqing and asked nervously, "In a valley." Jun Aoqing's beautiful eyes narrowed. "Is there a problem? When you entered the valley, no one stopped you." The girl in purple frowned and looked at Jun Aoqing strangely. "Yes." Jun Aoqing nodded and said, "But my speed was very fast. They couldn't stop me." "Were the people who stopped you 3 old men?" The girl in purple's beautiful eyes trembled as she continued to ask. Jun Aoqing nodded with a puzzled look. The people who stopped her were indeed 3 old men. Moreover, these 3 old men were very strong. They should be at the peak of the half-step realm. If she wasn't a space-time swordsman, she wouldn't have been able to get rid of the 3 old men. This is bad. The girl in purple's face darkened. She was very frightened. What happened? Nyetian frowned and stepped forward to ask. The purple-clothed woman sighed and looked at Nyetian. What you just consumed was the rainbow dew, the sacred flower of the 10,000 Mountain Sect. Only the sect leader of the 10,000 Mountain Sect has the right to consume it. Then, the girl in purple turned to look at Jun Aoqing and said, "The valley you entered is the sacred land of the 10,000 Mountain Sect. Other than the 3 supremes who guard the sacred land, only the sect leader can enter." So what? Jun Aoqing frowned and said cold. The girl in purple's eyes darkened. She said, "According to the rules of the 10,000 Mountain Sect, trespassers must die." Nie Tian was stunned when he heard the girl in purple's words. He frowned and asked, "Is the 10,000 Mountain Sect very powerful?" The 10,000 Mountain Sect is one of the 7 major sects in the frozen ruins. Do you think it's powerful? The girl in purple stared at Nie Tian and asked. Nie Tian's eyes trembled and his face darkened. He seemed to have unintentionally offended a super force in the frozen ruins. "Little girl, I've finally found you." At this moment, a deep and powerful voice suddenly rang out from the void. Chapter 2484. 3 sovereigns arrive. In the air, 3 gray-robed figures exuded a powerful aura. Standing there, they were like 3 mountains, giving off an intense pressure. What? Nie Tian looked at the 3 figures, his eyes narrowing. Judging from their auras, these 3 old men were undoubtedly half-step peak powerhouses. "It's you." Jun Aoqing recognized the 3 old men. Her eyes glittered, and she said with a cold smile, "I didn't think you'd chase me all the way here." Nie Tian was taken aback by Jun Aoqing's words. Then he realized that these 3 old men were the guardians of the Myriad Mountains sect's holy land. It turned out that Jun Aoqing's Dew Rainbow was stolen from these 3 people. They were all half-step peak experts, and any one of them was stronger than Jun Aoqing. Jun Aoqing must have spent a lot of effort to get rid of them. No wonder Jun Aoqing had been gone for so long. Nie Tian's guess was correct. The 3 old men in front of him were the 3 sovereigns of the Myriad Mountains sect: Celestial Yang, Celestial Moon, and Celestial Star. "Little girl, the 3 of us left the Holy Land to chase you," said Celestial Yang. He looked at Jun Aoqing, but there wasn't much killing intent in his eyes. "Yang Zun, don't talk nonsense with this little girl. She trespassed into the sacred land, which is a taboo of the 10,000-weight mountain school. She also stole the Dew Rainbow, which is even more unforgivable. Let me kill her right away." The Star Venerable was a short and fat man with an impatient personality. His big face was filled with anger as he spoke wildly. Then the Star Venerable moved. He was going to attack for real. "Wait, Celestial Star," Celestial Moon said, moving to block Celestial Star's path. "What are you doing, Celestial Moon?" Celestial Star blurted out. "Don't be impulsive." Celestial Moon chuckled, stroking his goatee as he stared at Jun Aoqing. "This little girl is so young, but she's already a late-stage paramount god. And she's a rare space-time swordsman. If I'm not mistaken, she's already at the peak of the sword art unity level." As he spoke, he let out a strange laugh. His eyes flickered with a hint of light, and he said playfully, "Have any of you seen such talent before? This little girl's talent is indeed very strong. Otherwise, she would not have been able to escape from the 3 of us." Yang Zun smiled faintly. His eyes flickered as if he was calculating something. "Humph." Celestial Star sneered angrily. "So what if she's talented? She trespassed on the sacred land and stole the Dew Rainbow." Celestial Yang knew what Celestial Star meant. "Celestial Star must die." Celestial Star said. Celestial 2-inch was of celestial gods. Nye Tian, who was listening on the side, had some clues. He had thought it was strange that even if Jun Aoqing was a space-time swordsman, she wouldn't have been able to escape from 3 peak half-step experts. After listening to the conversation, he realized that Celestial Yang and Celestial Moon had realized that Jun Aoqing was very talented, so they didn't kill her. Otherwise, Jun Aoqing wouldn't have been able to steal the dew rainbow from them. Little girl, hand over the dewdrop rainbow. The Yang Zun smiled faintly and said calmly. Jun Aoqing's eyes flashed. My lords, the dew rainbow is gone. If you want to kill me, then do it. Jun Aoqing's aura surged. She was ready for a fight to the death. It's gone. Celestial Yang was stunned. Then, he asked, where did you put the dew rainbow? I ate it. Before Jun Aoqing could say anything, Nye Tian stepped forward and said calmly. You ate it? The 3 celestial gods were stunned. They screamed at the same time. They stared at Nye Tian in disbelief. They didn't know that the dew rainbow had already been taken. The dew rainbow was the sacred flower of the Myriad Mountain sect. Only the lord of the sect was qualified to enjoy it. Little B** starred, I will kill you. Celestial Star reacted immediately. He roared and his aura rose. His body moved abruptly, and he slammed his palm down toward Nye Tian. Boom! In the air, a giant palm shadow fell toward Nye Tian. Human sword cutting stars. Nye Tian frowned and reacted instantly. He thrust out the star's sky slash. The sword shadow whizzed out and blocked the palm shadow in the air. However, his figure was pushed back several steps by the blast of the blast. Nye Tian steadied himself and took a deep breath. He thought to himself, this old man is really strong. His palm strike is even stronger than my sacred heaven move. Celestial Star's palm strike was obviously because he was furious. It wasn't his real power. But Nye Tian used the human sword cutting stars. Even so, he was still suppressed by the Celestial Star. Celestial Star was stunned. He looked at Nye Tian in disbelief. He obviously didn't expect Nye Tian to block his palm strike. It seemed like Nye Tian wasn't injured at all. That was very scary. Nye Tian was only a late-stage supreme god. How could he block a palm strike from an expert at the peak of the half-step? The next moment, Celestial Star calmed down and shouted, Kid, you have some strength, but you ate the dew rainbow. You must die. Dew rainbow was very important to the 10,000 Mountains sect. The 3 guardians of dew rainbow had a great responsibility. If they didn't kill Nye Tian, how could they explain it to the sect master? Celestial Star's energy soared. He was going to attack again. Celestial Star, stop. Celestial Sun and Celestial Moon shouted at the same time. They moved at the same time to stop the reckless Celestial Star. Celestial Sun, Celestial Moon, what are you doing? Celestial Star shouted in anger. Celestial Star, don't be impulsive. There's something strange about this kid. Celestial Sun frowned. He stared at Nye Tian and said in a deep voice, Kid, how do you feel now? Nye Tian was very calm. He looked up and said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, I feel very good. Feel good? Celestial Sun was surprised. A strange light flashed in his eyes. He continued to ask, What do you mean by feeling very good? Nye Tian was a little confused. He smiled and said, I feel very good. There's nothing strange. And my strength seems to have improved. I should be able to break through soon. This. Celestial Sun was shocked. He gasped and looked at Celestial Moon. Both of them were shocked and said, How is this possible? Celestial Sun, Celestial Moon, what's wrong with you? Did you notice something? Celestial Star was confused when he saw Celestial Sun and Celestial Moon's reaction. Celestial Star, this kid ate the dew rainbow, but nothing happened. Don't you think it's strange? Celestial Sun asked in a deep voice. Chapter 2485. Chapter 2485. Chapter 2485. The Star Venerable looked at Nye Tian in shock. his eyes full of disbelief. He had just realized how strange Nye Tian was. The dew rainbow contained an enormous amount of light and water element power. Moreover, the two elements were perfectly combined, so it was very difficult to absorb. Even a powerhouse like the master of the Myriad Mountain sect would need years, or even decades to absorb the dew rainbow's power. Nye Tian had just consumed the dew rainbow, but he was not affected at all. Instead, he had absorbed the dew rainbow's power. This was very strange. Nye Tian could not help but frown when he saw how surprised the three venerable ones were. He was puzzled. "Young man, who are you?" Yang Zun asked in a deep voice. He was much calmer now. After a moment of pondering, Nye Tian said honestly, "Lord Yang Zun, to tell you the truth, my friend and I aren't from the frozen relic. We're from another realm." "Another territory?" The three venerable ones were dumbfounded. They said in shock, "Are there other territories outside the frozen remains?" The lady in purple and her companions were also shocked. They looked at Nye Tian and the others curiously. Nye Tian was not surprised by their reactions. The three venerable ones lived in the frozen remains, so it was normal that they did not know about the existence of other territories. Just like the martial artists of the 9 territories, very few people knew that there were other territories outside the 9 territories. If the 9 territories were not closely connected, the people of the 9 territories might not even know about each other's existence. "You are not disciples of the Myriad Mountain sect?" Yang Zun came to himself and looked at Nye Tian with a deep gaze. "No." Nye Tian shook his head slightly. "Even if you are from another territory, how do you explain how you can absorb the dew rainbow's power directly?" Star Venerable asked cold. "I don't know how to explain it." Nye Tian's eyebrows furrowed. Then, he thought of something and said, "Before I came to the frozen relic, I was cursed by a dark and fire-attributed curse. Perhaps because of the curse, I was able to directly absorb the power of the rainbow dew." The Yang Zun was slightly stunned. It was obvious that he was considering whether Nye Tian's words were true. "Moon supremacy, what do you think?" The sun's supremacy thought for a moment before looking at the moon's supremacy. The three venerables were led by the Yang Supreme, but when the three of them made decisions, the final decision was usually made by the moon supreme. Jun Aoqing stole the rainbow dew, and Nye Tian consumed it. According to the rules of the 10,000-weight mountain sect, both of them deserved to die. However, the three venerable ones could tell that Nye Tian and Jun Aoqing were quite powerful and talented, so they could not make up their minds. "Little brother, what you consumed was the sacred flower of the 10,000-weight mountain sect." The moon supremacy thought for a moment, then looked at Nye Tian and said, "The 10,000-weight 7th sect only has this dew rainbow. It was prepared for the sect master. The young lady beside you trespassed into the sacred grounds of the 10,000-weight mountain sect and stole the dew rainbow. This is a serious crime. The three of us saw that you are talented and you are from another territory. You are not familiar with the rules of the 10,000-weight mountain sect, so it is inconvenient for us to kill you." The moon supremacy smiled and said, "I plan to do this. You and your friend will follow us to see the sect master. The sect master will decide how to deal with you. What do you think?" Nye Tian frowned after hearing the moon supremacy's words. The moon supremacy seemed like a nice person, and every word he said was sincere. In this situation, if Nye Tian did not go with the three venerable ones, it would be a battle of life and death. Nye Tian's strength had not recovered to its peak yet. Even if he was at his peak, it was impossible for him to fight against 3 experts at the peak of the half-step at the same time. With his current strength, he could at most fight against 1 expert at the peak of the half-step at the most. Therefore, if he chose to fight back, someone would definitely be injured or even killed. "All right, I will go with you." After thinking for a moment, Nye Tian decided to go with the 3 venerable ones. Although Nye Tian did not know about the dew rainbow, He had taken something from the 10,000-weight mountain sect after all. Therefore, it was reasonable for him to follow the three venerable ones to see the 10,000-weight mountain sect. Nye Tian. Jun Aoqing looked at Nye Tian, her eyes sparkling. She was clearly worried. The three venerable ones were terrifying enough. The 10,000-weight mountain sect's sect master was definitely more powerful. If the 10,000-weight mountain sect's sect master was unwilling to forgive Nye Tian and them, wouldn't it be troublesome? Young lady, don't worry. Our sect master is a reasonable person. Explain to him clearly and I believe he won't make things difficult for you. The Lunar Supreme could tell what Jun Aoqing was worried about and said with a smile. Aoqing, let's go with the three venerable ones to see the sect master. Nye Tian nodded and said with a smile. Jun Aoqing's eyes quivered and she nodded in the end. You guys come with us. The Lunar Supreme nodded and glanced at the lady in purple and the others. How dare you? Do you know that Our Lady is? Just then, one of the cultivators looked unhappy and shouted. Chen-san. The cultivator had only spoken halfway when the lady in purple glared at him and told him to stop. Venerable Moon looked at the girl in purple and was stunned for a moment, as if he had noticed something. However, he quickly regained his composure and said with a faint smile, Lady, since you are with these little brothers, you are also involved. Please come with us. The lady in purple nodded slightly. Her expression was strange, as if she was thinking about something. Then, everyone left under the guidance of the three venerable ones. Around half an hour later, Nye Tian and the others arrived at the 10,000-weight mountain sect. At the moment, they were standing on a square with a radius of tens of thousands of meters. Nye Tian, you guys wait here. I'll go ask our sect master. The Lunar Paragon smiled faintly and left. The Solar Supreme and the Star Supreme stayed where they were and watched over Nye Tian and the others. After a while, many disciples of the 10,000-weight mountain sect gathered around. They looked at Nye Tian and the others strangely and discussed in low voices. Who are these people? Why have I never seen them before? Did they do something wrong? Why are there people watching over them? They must have broken the rules of the sect. They are waiting to be punished. Who are these two old men? They seem to be very strong. The crowd discussed in low voices, as if they were waiting to see a joke. The three venerable ones guarded the Dew Rainbow all year round, so the disciples of the 10,000-weight mountain sect did not know them. Nye Tian's gaze froze. He could not help but look at the lady in purple. He had thought that the lady in purple and the others were from the 10,000-weight mountain sect, but they were not. Otherwise, how could no one have recognized the lady in purple? Speaking of which, the lady in purple and the others had caused a great commotion in the mountains. They should have alerted the higher-ups of the 10,000-weight mountain sect. It's you. Just then, a voice was heard. Then, a figure jumped out and pointed at Nye Tian. He shouted, It's you. Nye Tian frowned. He looked at the person and immediately recognized him. When he had first arrived at the frozen relic, he had met a man and a woman. Because they provoked Jun Aoqing, the man was killed by Jun Aoqing and the woman left. Chapter 2486. Chapter 2486. A bunch of trash. The sudden appearance of the lady in pink caused an uproar. The crowd was curious. They wanted to know what was going on. These are the people who killed young Master Hua, the lady in pink shouted. She was very excited. As soon as her voice fell, it immediately caused an uproar. What? These people killed young Master Hua? How dare they? How dare they kill young Master Hua? No wonder the people from the law enforcement hall went to the back of the mountain. They went to catch young Master Hua's murderer. These people are really bold. They killed young Master Hua and still dare to show up here. Nye Tian frowned slightly when he heard the crowd. He smiled bitterly and said, Looks like the scum we killed earlier has a high status in the 10,000 mountain sect. He didn't know that young Master Hua, beggar Zigue, whom Jun Aoqing killed, was the grandson of the head elder of the Law Enforcement Hall. Sirs, these people killed young Master Hua. Take him to the Law Enforcement Hall. The lady in pink shouted at the Sun Venerable and Star Venerable. She had no idea what was going on. I don't know who young Master Hua is. Piss off. Star Venerable was angry and didn't bother to pay attention to the lady in pink. He scolded her coldly. You. The lady in pink was shocked. Her expression seemed to be saying, there's someone in the 10,000 Mountains sect who doesn't know young Master Hua? Everyone in the 10,000 Mountains sect knew Hua Zigui. It wasn't because he was talented or powerful, but because he had a nickname, Lecherous Hua. Everyone in the 10,000 Mountains sect knew that Hua Zigui was a lecherous man. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that Hua Zigui had harmed at least 1,000 female disciples in the 10,000 Mountains sect. However, because Hua Zigui's grandfather was the head elder of the Law Enforcement Hall, no one dared to provoke him. Everyone was happy to hear about Hua Zigui's death. The crowd was shocked. They were curious that someone didn't know about the famous young Master Hua. They didn't know that not only did the three Supremes not know about Hua Zigui, but they also didn't know about Hua Zigui's grandfather. In the entire 10,000 Mountains sect, the three Supremes only knew about the Patriarch. As for the others, they didn't even have the qualifications to deal with them. Damn old man, you will regret this. The pink-robed woman was stunned for a moment before she reacted. She said harshly before she turned around and left. How dare you? The Star Venerable was taken aback. He was about to attack, but the young Venerable stopped him. We don't need to lower ourselves to the level of a little boy like you. Let's focus on the big picture, the young Venerable said in a deep voice, trying to calm the Star Venerable down. They didn't care who Nye Tian and the others killed, they only cared about the Dew Rainbow. Nye Tian looked at the back of the girl in pink and the corner of his mouth twitched. He found it a little funny. After the Dew Rainbow incident, Hanako Gui's death was no longer important. However, after a short while, the pink-clothed woman returned. Furthermore, she brought with her dozens of black-clothed cultivators. Each and every one of them had a ferocious expression, like a pack of hungry wolves. Look, it's people from the Law Enforcement Hall. The people from the Law Enforcement Hall are here. They must be here to arrest these people. I don't know who those two old men are, but they look very powerful. Looks like there's going to be a good show to watch. The crowd immediately recognized the black-clothed cultivators as members of the Law Enforcement Hall. The pink-clothed woman quickly walked over and pointed at Nye Tian and the others. She screamed, "They're the ones who killed young Master Hanako." A dark-faced disciple from the Law Enforcement Hall walked over with a cold smile on his face. "Miss Leroux, please step aside. Leave this to us." Nye Tian glanced at him and didn't want to look at him a second time. This guy was only a late-stage paramount god, but he looked like he wanted to walk on 3 legs. One look in Nye Tian could tell he was an idiot. As for the other people from the Law Enforcement Hall, there were a few mid-stage paramount gods, and the rest were early-stage paramount gods. Now that he thought about it, Hanako Gui, who had been killed by Jun Aoqing, was probably a core disciple of the 10,000 Layers Mountain sect. After all, he was a late-stage paramount god. Most of the onlookers were lord gods. Only a few of them were early-stage or mid-stage paramount gods. That was why they couldn't see through the Sun Venerate and the Star Venerate's strength. You killed young Master Hanako, and you still dare to come to the 10,000 Layers Mountain sect? You're really looking to die. The dark-faced man laughed coldly and strode toward Nye Tian. Boom! But at that moment, the air suddenly trembled, and a powerful energy wave appeared. The black-faced man let out a strange cry. His body tilted backwards and he directly fell down. But then he got back to his feet and roared, "Which bastard dared to sneak up on me? Get lost!" The next moment, an angry roar was heard, and a powerful force shot out and sent the dark-faced man flying 100 meters away. The person who had attacked was the Star Venerate. He couldn't be bothered to waste words with the dark-faced man, so he growled, "If you take half a step closer, I'll cripple you." The dark-faced man steadied himself and looked at the star venerate in shock. He was so scared that his face turned pale. He hadn't noticed the star venerate at all. He had been focused on capturing Nyetian. How could he have imagined that such a powerful martial artist would appear here? "Fat old man, don't you know Big Brother Iron Tiger is a disciple of the Law Enforcement Hall? If you dare attack him, you're looking down on the Law Enforcement Hall." The pink-clothed woman was stunned at first, but then she reacted and shouted at the star venerate. "You get lost too." The star venerate's face fell. He waved his hand and a powerful energy wave flew out. "Ah!" The pink-clothed woman screamed and was sent flying. She flew 10,000 meters away and hit the ground hard. It was unknown whether she was dead or alive. The star venerate was one of the 3 venerates of the 10,000 Layers mountain. How could he let a little disciple humiliate him like that? He was being merciful by not killing these people. Star venerate, don't be impulsive. Why take a group of kids seriously? The sun venerate looked at the star venerate and tried to persuade him. The star venerate said angrily, "What law enforcement hall? They're just a bunch of good-for-nothings. No wonder the 7th sect is getting weaker and weaker. They'll be destroyed by those good-for-nothings sooner or later." Nyetian frowned slightly when he heard the star venerate's words. He was confused. He had heard the name 7th sect before, so he was confused. Wasn't this the 10,000 Mountain sect? Why was it the 7th sect? "You're so arrogant to say our law enforcement hall is good-for-nothings." At this moment, the void shook slightly, and a low, murderous voice rang out. The next moment, a figure in black appeared. He descended like a mountain. His aura was like a raging sea, spreading in the void. The chief elder of the Law Enforcement Hall. The crowd was stunned. They looked at the man and recognized him immediately. They shouted in surprise. Chapter 2487. Chapter 2487. Chapter 2487. The Patriarch shows up. Hwamyuk showed up. His energy was surging. He stared at the star venerable with a vicious look. Nyetian looked at Hwamyuk and sensed him with his soul consciousness. The corners of his mouth twitched. Hwamyuk wasn't weak. He was a strong cultivator half a step away from the peak. But his energy was still weaker than the 3 venerables. "Are you the head elder of the Law Enforcement Hall?" The star venerable asked Hwamyuk coldly. "I am the head elder of the Law Enforcement Hall, Hwamyuk." Hwamyuk responded coldly. He said with a gloomy face, "Who are you? How dare you cause trouble in the 7th faction of the Myriad Mountains?" The 3 venerables didn't show up in the faction, so even Hwamyuk didn't know the star venerable and the sun venerable. He treated them as outsiders. Cause trouble. The star venerable didn't say who he was. He sneered and said, "Which of your eyes saw me cause trouble? If I really caused trouble, would the good-for-nothings of the Law Enforcement Hall still be standing here?" Hwamyuk's face darkened when he heard the star venerable. He said coldly, "You're too arrogant." "So what? Bite me if you can." The star venerable laughed. He was even more arrogant. He was very angry about the dew rainbow. Then he was scolded by a few young people. He was so angry that he wanted to find someone to vent his anger on. Hwamyuk wasn't weak. He could use him to practice and vent his anger. "How dare you!" Hwamyuk shouted angrily. His energy surged crazily. Endless energy surged. So strong. The crowd felt the enormous pressure. They were shaking and stepped back. "Okay, if you want to fight, I'll play with you." The star venerable wasn't afraid at all. He smiled coldly. "Star venerable, don't be reckless," the sun venerable said, frowning. "Don't worry, old Yang. I know what I'm doing. I'm just playing with him." The star venerable chuckled and took a step forward. His body was surrounded by a surging power. It was thick and powerful. It was magnificent. Hwamyuk frowned. He didn't want to fight. He just wanted to intimidate them. However, since a star venerable had come forward, he had to intervene. Since you want to die, I will fulfill your wish. Hua Myuk smiled coldly. He moved suddenly, and a black broadsword appeared in his hand. He waved it fiercely, and a broadsword shadow that was thousands of feet long appeared in the air. The moment the broadsword shone, it was like a flowing waterfall of light that pressed down on the star venerable. The peak of the fusion of knife and martial arts. Not bad. The star venerable laughed. His tone was provocative. He clenched his fist and punched out. The fist shadows were like wild beasts, roaring and surging in the void. Boom! In the next moment, the two violent forces collided with each other. An endless amount of power immediately surged out and wreaked havoc in the space. Immediately, waves of energy visible to the naked eye surged and spread in all directions. Crack, crack, crack. The ground was struck by the impact and directly cracked. Sand and stones flew everywhere, and turbid waves rose to the sky. The crowd retreated to the edge of the huge square. Star Venerable and Hua Myuk dashed into the sky at the same time. Looking at the two figures, Nye Tian said to himself, "Strong people half a step away from the peak are really strong." He thought to himself, if he were to fight against one of them at that moment, he would be injured. At that moment, the crowd's eyes were trembling. They were watching the fight in the sky in shock. Boom! Sizzle! Explosions and ear-piercing sounds kept coming from the sky. An endless amount of power was surging in the space. Hua Myuk and the Star Venerable exchanged more than 10 blows. The universe was shaking, and the wind and clouds were surging. Bang! At that moment they exchanged blows again. After a muffled sound, Hua Myuk was sent back thousands of feet, while the Star Venerable was as steady as a mountain. He was motionless. "Grand Elder of the Law Enforcement Hall, is this all you've got?" The Star Venerable sneered and said sarcastically, "I don't think you should be the Grand Elder of the Law Enforcement Hall." "Darn it!" Hua Myuk steadied himself. His face was slightly flushed, and he was furious. Although his knife spirit was powerful, the Star Venerable was stronger than him. Even though he had the upper hand in every attack, he was still suppressed when they were exchanging blows. In fact, the Star Venerable was holding back his strength. He didn't go all out. Every attack of Hua Myuk was a killing attack, and he went all out. However, the Star Venerable was holding back, trying not to injure him. After all, they were from the same faction. If they really injured Hua Myuk, it would be embarrassing. Boom! At that moment, Hua Myuk's body suddenly shook. His energy started to soar. The knife spirit surging in his body had a strong smell of blood. The Star Venerable was a bit shocked. He didn't expect Hua Myuk would burn his blood and chi to fight with all his strength. "Grand Elder, let's end this fight." "It's a tie," the Star Venerable said hurriedly. He knew if the fight went on, it would be a life-or-death fight. "It's too late to end it now," Hua Myuk shouted angrily. His eyes were filled with killing intent. The blood and chi in his body merged with the knife spirit. He waved the black broadsword in his hand madly. Boom! A shadow of a broadsword almost 10,000 feet long appeared in the air. It was like a giant roaring beast, pressing down on the Star Venerable. "Star Venerable!" Seeing that, young Venerable shouted in surprise. He knew if the Star Venerable chose to defend in such a situation, he would be seriously injured or even killed. If the Star Venerable fought back with all his strength, Hua Myuk would be the one who would be seriously injured or killed. "This old guy is crazy." The Star Venerable frowned. He had no choice but to release his energy. "You two, please stop." At that moment, the air suddenly shook and a clear voice appeared. Boom! The next moment, a giant handprint appeared in the air, holding the giant broadsword shadow. Bang! The giant handprint suddenly shook, and the broadsword shadow was smashed into pieces. The sudden scene in the sky caused everyone to suck in a breath of cold air. Their expressions were filled with extreme shock. A peak-strong man. Nie Tion's eyes darkened, and he exclaimed inwardly. The person who had blocked Hua Myuk's all-out attack so easily must be at the peak of the god state. Hua Myuk and the Star Venerable were both dumbfounded. They immediately realized what was going on, and they looked into the air. A figure appeared in the air. She was in a white dress, and she looked ethereal. She had a beautiful face and a curvy body. It was a female martial artist. Lord! When Hua Myuk saw the female martial artist's face clearly, he was dumbfounded, and he shouted in surprise. Lord! The Star Venerable also realized what was going on, and he bowed slightly and shouted, Lord! The people below finally recovered from their shock, and they spoke at the same time. Their eyes were filled with admiration. The woman in the white dress was none other than the Lord of the 10,000 Mountain Sect, Purple Bamboo Lulon. She's the Lord? Nie Tion looked at Purple Bamboo Lulon and his face froze. Chapter 2488. Chapter 2488. Chapter 2488. Lady of the Imperial Family. Nie Tion stared at Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist for a long time before he recovered from his shock. Jun Aoqing and the others were equally shocked, and their faces were filled with disbelief. Master, this person. High up in the sky, Hua Myuk calmed himself down and spoke to Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist. However, before he could finish, he was interrupted by the latter. Let's discuss everything in the 10,000-layer palace. After saying that, Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist's figure moved and disappeared. Hua Myuk frowned, but he was not too surprised. He was already used to Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist's personality. Then the Moon Venerable showed up. She came to the Star Venerable and asked in surprise, Star Venerable, what's going on? The Star Venerable smiled embarrassedly. He said, Nothing. I was just playing with this elder. Hua Myuk frowned and his face darkened. He wasn't playing with a Star Venerable. He had almost lost his life a moment ago. The Moon Venerable guessed it, but she could do nothing about the Star Venerable. She could only shake her head and smile. Old Yu Lulon is getting stronger and stronger, the Star Venerable said in a low voice with a smile. He didn't care about it. Star Venerable, mind your words. You can't call the Lord Patriarch's name so casually. The Moon Venerable frowned unhappily. I will call her Lord in front of you. In front of other people, of course, I will call her Lord. The Star Venerable smiled again. Then his body moved and he landed. Then, the three Venerables brought Nie Tion and the others along with Hua Myuk to the 10,000-layer palace. A few moments later, they arrived at the entrance of the Wait Palace. Venerable Moon, please enter the hall. Let the unrelated people wait outside. Within the palace, Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist's voice sounded out. It was extremely clear and pleasant to the ears, but at the same time, it contained a coldness that kept people at a distance. Yes, Yuzun replied. Then, he glanced at everyone and said, Nie Tion, Jun Aoqing, you two follow us into the hall. With that, he came to the side of the purple-clothed girl and bowed deeply to the latter. He said respectfully, Miss Imperial Maiden, please enter the hall as well. Yes. The purple-robed girl nodded slightly. She wasn't surprised at all. Nie Tion was taken aback by what he saw, and his face was filled with confusion. Who is this purple-clad girl? Why is Supreme Moon so respectful to her? Yuzun, could she be? The young Zun was also stunned. He cried out in surprise, but he didn't continue. It was unknown whether he couldn't say it or he didn't dare to say it. Venerable Moon just nodded and didn't say much. Next, Nie Tion and the others followed the three Supremes into the 10,000-layer palace. Hua Myuk followed them as well. The 10,000-weight palace was extremely vast. It was tens of thousands of meters in length and width, and several thousand meters in height. At the center of the palace sat a figure. It was the sect master of the 10,000-layer mountain sect, Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist. Everyone, please sit, Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist said calmly. Her sweet-sounding voice was cold. Nie Tian and the others took their seat. However, the purple-clothed girl continued to walk forward, step by step. What is she trying to do? Nie Tian looked at the purple-robed girl and wondered. Zizhu Xen greets aunt. The purple-clad girl came to Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist's side and bowed slightly. Auntie. Nie Tian was taken aback and his expression froze. He never thought that the purple-clad girl was the niece of the 10,000-layer mountain sect master. Xianer, how long has it been since we last met? Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist looked at Zizhu Xian with a cold face. Auntie, the last time Xianer saw Auntie was 20 years ago, Zizhuxin replied respectfully. 20 years ago. Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist smiled strangely and said, I was still in the main sect then, right? Yes. Zizhu Xian nodded. All right, you can go back and sit. Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist waved her hand and said coldly. Aunt. Zizhu Xian's beautiful eyes flashed. She hesitated for a moment and suddenly opened her mouth, but stopped. What's the matter? Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist raised an eyebrow and asked. Aunt. Zizhu Xian's expression was complicated. She looked at Nie Tian and pointed at Nie Tian and said, He was the one who consumed the rainbow of dew, but he saved my life. Xian wants aunt to let him go and not kill him. If aunt wants the rainbow of dew, Xian can talk to father and ask him to send someone to give aunt another one. Oh! Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist smiled strangely and said, Do you think father will agree to give me another one? Zizhu Xian's eyes flickered and said, As long as Xian asks, father will definitely agree. Is that so? Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist smiled cold and waved her hand. Go back and sit. Zizhu Xian frowned slightly. She wanted to say something, but after thinking about it, she decided not to. She turned around and sat next to Nie Tian. Miss Zizhu, what's going on? Nie Tian was confused. He couldn't help but ask Zizhuxin through voice transmission, Are you from the 10,000-weight mountain sect? Now Nie Tian was a little confused. He had no idea who Zizhuxin was. I'm from the main sect of the 10,000 mountain sect. My aunt is the sect leader of the 7th branch sect. Zizhu Xian could tell that Nie Tian was confused. She said telepathically, We're at the 7th branch now. Nie Tian frowned and his expression froze when he heard Zizhu Xian's words. He finally understood a little. The 10,000 mountain sect was much more terrifying than he had imagined. The 10,000 mountain sect should be a super-large sect. It was divided into the main sect and the branch sections. Zizhu Xian was from the main sect, while Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist was the sect leader of the 7th branch sect. At this point, Nie Tian couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. He saw with his own eyes that Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist was at the peak of the immortal state. The 3 venerables were also half-step pinnacle powerhouses. Even the great elder of the Hall of Law Enforcement, Hua Myuk, was close to half-step pinnacle. And this was just the strength of one branch sect of the 10,000 mountain sect. It would not be an exaggeration to say that the 7th branch sect of the 10,000 mountain sect would be a peak faction in the 9 realms, comparable to the Wind and Cloud Alliance or the Sacred Parliament. However, it was just one branch sect of the 10,000 mountain sect. How terrifying would the strength of the entire 10,000 mountain sect be? With such a comparison, Nie Tian felt that the frozen ruins were much more powerful than the 9 realms. They were even more powerful than the 9ly demonic realm. Still, he did not know if there were any demi-saint or pseudo-saint powerhouses in the frozen ruins. Miss Zizhu, I would like to ask, how many branches does your 10,000 mountain sect have? Nie Tian forced himself to calm down and asked in a deep voice. Zizhu Xen frowned. She thought for a moment and shook her head. I'm not too sure. There should be dozens of branches. Dozens? Nie Tian's eyes narrowed. He was so shocked that he almost screamed. He never thought that the 10,000 mountain sect had dozens of branches. If every branch sect was as powerful as the 7th sect, Wouldn't that mean that the 10,000 mountain sect's strength was equivalent to dozens of wind and cloud alliances? How could the frozen ruins have such a powerful force? Before entering the frozen ruins, Nye Tian had thought that the realm was very weak. It was only now that he realized that the frozen ruins were much more powerful than the 9 realms. You are the one who swallowed the rainbow of dew? Just as Nye Tian was in a state of shock, Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist's cold voice resounded. It was bone-chilling and suffocating. Nye Tian was stunned. He looked up at Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist, and could not help but tremble. Chapter 2489. Chapter 2489. Chapter 2489. Shouldering the burden, Nye Tian sensed the killing intent in Purple Bamboo Mist's eyes. His expression changed slightly, but he quickly calmed down and nodded. Very good. Purple Bamboo Mist smiled strangely. She then shifted her gaze to Jun Aoqing and asked in a deep voice, "Are you the one who stole the dew rainbow?" "Yes," Jun Aoqing replied straightforwardly. "To be able to steal something from the hands of the 3 Zun Zun, you must be very strong." Purple Bamboo Mist smiled coldly. A strange light flickered in her eyes. In the next moment she suddenly did something shocking. She suddenly extended her arm. Instantly, a soft force shot out. It was so fast that it was faster than the blink of an eye. Buzz! Jun Aoqing suddenly felt the pressure. Just as she wanted to resist, she was shocked to find that her body was enveloped by a terrifying force. She could not move at all. Ah! In the next moment, Jun Aoqing screamed. Her body suddenly floated into the air. It was as if an invisible hand had lifted her up. Aoqing! The sudden scene caused Nye Tian's pupils to shrink, and he immediately let out a cry of shock. His figure instantly moved, and a starlight heavenly slash appeared in his hand, and he violently thrust it towards Purple Bamboo Mist. Courting death. Facing Nye Tian's sword strike, Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist let out a cold laugh as she made a grabbing motion with her hand. Instantly, an illusory green palm appeared in midair, and pounced down towards Nye Tian like a raging tidal wave. Nye Tian's gaze froze. The sword intent around his body surged violently. Wherever his sword passed, a huge sword shadow appeared. Rumble! In the air, 2 terrifying forces collided. The space froze for a moment. Immediately, an endless amount of energy spread out. At that moment, Nye Tian, who was in the air, felt a soft and endless energy enveloping him. He felt a huge pressure. However, when he suddenly saw Jun Aoqing, he immediately roared. Waves of starlight heaven slash released and forcefully broke through the restraints around him. Let her go! In the next moment, Nye Tian bellowed and attacked with the starlight heaven slash again. Sword images resembled wild dragons as they attacked Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist. Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist exclaimed in surprise. Evidently, she had not expected Nye Tian to be so powerful. However, she regained her composure in the blink of an eye. Her palm turned slightly in the air, and a green light appeared. Like an arrow leaving a bow, it suddenly shot out like lightning. Pung! The green light streaked across the sky and the sword's shadow immediately shattered. Nye Tian's figure flew backward and heavily smashed into a stone pillar in the hall. He steadied his body, his eyes filled with anger as he glared at Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist. "My little friend Nye Tian, don't be impulsive." Right at this moment, Venerated Moon spoke and indicated to Nye Tian to calm down. However, Nye Tian didn't care. He stared at Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist with killing intent as he roared, "Release him!" Sure. Out of everyone's expectation, Purple Bamboo Mist smiled lightly, loosened his grip, and let go of Jun Aoqing. After Jun Aoqing landed, she moved to Nye Tian's side and asked anxiously, "Nye Tian, are you all right?" "I'm fine." Nye Tian nodded his head and his tense expression relaxed. Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist's strength was terrifying. It was not something that Nye Tian could fight against. It was obvious that Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist had not used her full strength in the previous attack. Otherwise, Nye Tian would definitely be injured. Lord Sect Leader, what is the meaning of this? Nye Tian became cold and stared at Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist as he asked coldly. Nothing. Purple Bamboo Mist smiled faintly as she looked at Nye Tian with a strange look in her eyes. No one knew what she was thinking. Lord Sect Leader, I have consumed the Dewdrop Rainbow. If you want to do anything, just do it to me. Don't make things difficult for others. Nye Tian Tianling said coldly. Your name is Nye Tian, right? Sit down and don't get too excited. Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist smiled and gestured for Nye Tian to sit down. Nye Tian frowned and sat down in the end. He was confused. What was Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist trying to do? Lord Sect Leader, what exactly do you want to do? Just say it. Nye Tian sat down and said with a gloomy face. Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist's lips curled into a strange smile. She seemed to be calculating something and said, The Dewdrop Rainbow is the sacred flower of the 10,000 Mountain Sect. There is only one Dewdrop Rainbow in every branch sect. Now that I've put it this way, do you understand how important the Dew Rainbow is to the 7th sect? I understand, Nye Tian answered with a grim face. What happened with the Rainbow of Dew was indeed our fault. June Ouching stole the Dewdrop Rainbow in order to save me. I was also the one who consumed the Dewdrop Rainbow. I am willing to bear all the blame. Purple Bamboo Mist looked at Nye Tian, and with a strange smile she asked, Shoulder the burden? Are you sure you can shoulder it? The Dewdrop Rainbow is the sacred flower of our sect. According to the rules of the sect, everyone related to it must die. On the other side, Hua Muk's voice rang out. He stared coldly at Nye Tian with a pair of deep eyes. How could he not know that the silver-haired young man in front of him was Hua Zigui's murderer? That was why he wanted Nye Tian dead more than anyone else. Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist frowned and suddenly looked at Hua Muk. Her expression was clearly saying, Did I allow you to speak? Hua Muk knew Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist's personality. He was so scared that his face changed and cold sweat appeared on his forehead. He did not dare to speak again. The 3 High Masters were confused as they watched from the side. They did not know what Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist was planning. I think I can bear all the blame. Nye Tian was very calm. He even had a faint smile on his face as he said, And I know that you think I can bear all the blame. Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist frowned and asked with a smile, Why do you think so? Because the sect master went easy on me just now, Nye Tian answered calmly, his face filled with confidence. You did go easy on me. Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist's sudden attack just now was not to kill. It was obvious that she was testing Nye Tian's strength. Therefore, Nye Tian guessed that Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist wanted him to do something for her. Impressive. Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist's eyes narrowed slightly. She then smiled and said, Nye Tian, you have really amazed me. Not only are you powerful and talented, but your temperament and shrewdness are also extraordinary. The corner of Nye Tian's mouth twitched slightly as he said, Lord Sect Leader, you can save the pleasantries. If there's anything you want to say, please just say it. You are straightforward. Very good. Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist was not angry. She smiled and said, My request is very simple. As long as you agree to one of my conditions, I will not pursue the matter regarding the Dewdrop Rainbow. What conditions? Nye Tian frowned and his expression flickered. The Dewdrop Rainbow was the sacred flower of the 10,000 Mountain Sect. As a branch sect, the 7th sect only had one. If Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist said that she would not pursue the matter, then her condition would not be simple. Join the 7th sect. Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist's lips twitched. Chapter 2490. I am the rules. Purple Bamboo Mist's condition was for Nye Tian to join the 7th sect. This was something Nye Tian had not expected. To others, this condition might not be difficult. In fact, it might even be a good thing. After all, Purple Bamboo Fragrance had said that the 10,000 Mountain sect was one of the top 7 sects in the Frozen Ruins. Although the 7th sect was only a branch sect of the 10,000 Mountain sect, there was a high chance of joining the main sect. Becoming a member of the 10,000 Mountain sect was the dream of many martial artists in the Frozen Ruins. But to Nye Tian, this condition was very difficult. He had fought his way up from the bottom of the 3,000 lesser worlds, so he rarely joined any organizations. He liked to roam the world freely, and joining an organization meant that he would be restricted. If he joined the 7th sect, and Purple Bamboo Mist insisted that he stay in the sect, what would he do? Purple Bamboo Mist's words shocked not only Nye Tian, but also the 3 Venerable Ones and Hua Myuk. They had not expected Purple Bamboo Mist to propose this condition to Nye Tian. What was even more unexpected was that Nye Tian was hesitating. It seemed like he did not want to join the 7th sect. What? You don't want to? Purple Bamboo Mist frowned when she saw that Nye Tian did not speak for a long time. She asked in a cold tone, "Lord Sect Leader, what do you plan to do if I don't agree?" Nye Tian's eyes flashed as he suddenly asked. "This is the greatest concession this sect master can make, and also my only condition." Purple Bamboo Mist's expression turned cold. "If you don't agree, don't blame me for being merciless." Nye Tian could feel the killing intent in Purple Bamboo Mist's eyes, and his gaze narrowed. Of course, he knew what Purple Bamboo Mist meant by merciless. She meant to kill them. In this situation, Nye Tian had no choice. If Purple Bamboo Mist wanted to kill them, they would not be able to fight back. Putting aside the fact that Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist's strength was unfathomable, Nye Tian did not have the confidence to deal with the 3 Venerables or even Hua Myuk. After a moment of thought, Nye Tian's eyes glittered as he said, "Sect Lord, I can join the 7th sect, but I have some conditions." When the 3 Venerable Ones and Hua Myuk heard what Nye Tian said, they were all stunned. Nye Tian's actions were too arrogant. Purple Bamboo Mist had allowed him to join the 7th sect and not pursue the matter regarding the Dew Rainbow. That was a huge gift from the heavens. Not only did he not appreciate her kindness, he even brought up his conditions. Wasn't this testing Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist's patience? To everyone's surprise, Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist did not get angry. Instead, she asked seriously, "What are your conditions? Tell me." Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist's attitude stunned the 3 Venerables and Hua Myuk. They all knew that Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist was a cold and detached person. But why did Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist show such leniency towards Nye Tian? "I can join the 7th sect, but no one can restrict my freedom." Nye Tian nodded slightly and said in a deep voice. His words stunned the 3 Venerable Ones and Hua Myuk once again. If Nye Tian could come and go as he pleased after joining the 7th sect, what difference would it make if he joined or not? Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist frowned. She was seriously considering Nye Tian's conditions. The 3 Venerable Ones looked at each other, confused. Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist wouldn't really agree to Nye Tian's conditions, would she? "I can agree to your conditions," Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist said after a moment. After a short moment, Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist spoke, "However, for the following month, you must listen to this sect master's arrangements." "All right, no problem." Nye Tian thought for a moment, then agreed without hesitation. He could afford a month's time. "Sect Lord, this." Seeing that Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist had agreed, Hua Myuk's face turned ugly. He wanted to say something. "It's decided." Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist didn't give Hua Myuk a chance to speak. She cut him off cold. "But this is against the rules of the 7th sect." Hua Myuk mustered up his courage and said cautiously, "I'm the rule in the 7th sect." Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist looked cold at Hua Myuk and said domineeringly, "In the 7th sect, I am the rule." Hua Myuk broke out in a cold sweat. He took a deep breath and was speechless. He didn't even dare to mention that Hua Ziguei had been killed. "Sect Lord, What do you want me to do for the next month? Nye Tian asked with a smile. Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist wanted him to have a month's time. I want you to represent the seventh sect and participate in the path to heaven, Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist replied with a warm smile. Path to heaven? Nye Tian was stunned. He didn't know what Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist meant. You don't need to know now. You'll understand in half a month. Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist smiled again and said mysteriously. Nye Tian frowned and didn't ask any more questions. Lord Sect Leader, haven't we already decided on the candidates for the path to heaven? At this moment, Hua Muke's expression changed as he spoke with an ugly expression. Can't I just change my mind? Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist laughed and ignored Hua Muke. The three Supremes had strange expressions on their faces. They didn't expect Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist to let Nye Tian participate in the path to heaven. Sect Lord, it's been so many years. You still haven't given up on that person, Moon's Supremacy said to Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist. Purple Bamboo Fragrance, stay behind. The others can leave, Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist said coldly at this moment. Nye Tian and the others stood up and left the hall. After a while, Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist and Zizhu Xian were the only ones left in the hall. Auntie, what's the matter? Zizhu Xian asked timidly. She seemed to be afraid of Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist. Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist looked at Zizhu Xian and didn't say anything. She waved her hand and threw something at her. What's this? Zizhu Xian caught the item. It was a small bottle, but she didn't know what was inside. The blood of the Phantom Wolf Emperor. Take it back to save your brother, Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist said without looking at Zizhu Xian. Really? Zizhu Xian shouted in surprise. Thank you, Auntie. She had come to the seventh sect to get the blood of the Phantom Wolf Emperor to cure her brother's strange illness. She didn't dare to reveal her identity because she was afraid that Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist would stop her. Zizhu Xian's father, who was also Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist's elder brother, Purple Bamboo Wolf 7, had sent people to the seventh sect many times to ask for the blood of the Phantom Wolf Emperor. But every time, the people sent by Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 were severely injured by Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist, and they couldn't get the blood of the Phantom Wolf Emperor. Zizhu Xian only knew that there was a conflict between her father and her auntie, but she didn't know why. Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist had left the Myriad Mountains main sect to avoid Purple Bamboo Wolf 7. I'm tired. You can go back. Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist said in a deep voice. Don't let your father know that you've seen me, and don't let him know that I'm the one who gave you the blood of the Phantom Wolf Emperor. Do you understand? Why? Zizhu Xian was stunned. She didn't understand. There's no why. You can go, Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist replied in a cold voice. Chapter 2491. Saving a person. After Nye Tian and the others left the Grand Hall, one of the warriors led them to a courtyard. Everyone, you can stay here for the time being, the martial artist said politely before turning around and leaving. Let's go in, Ouching, Nye Tian said, nodding. Then he, Jun Ouching, and the others entered the courtyard. Jun Ouching and the others were all tired, so they picked their own rooms and went to rest. Nye Tian stood there alone in the courtyard, a very nervous expression on his face. He was very curious about what Violet Bamboo Mist was talking about when she mentioned the path to the heavens. He knew that the reason Violet Bamboo Mist had asked him to join the seventh sect was because of the path to the heavens. For the sake of the path to the heavens, Violet Bamboo Mist had dropped the matter of the Dew Rainbow, which went to show how important it was to her and to the seventh sect. But considering that Nye Tian knew nothing about the path to the heavens, he couldn't help but feel a bit worried. Chuckling, Fat Cat said, There's no point in worrying too much, Nye Tian. Why don't you focus on absorbing the power of the Dew Rainbow? That will help you achieve a breakthrough as soon as possible. Nye Tian was stunned at first, but then he laughed and said, The Rainbow Dew is indeed a good thing. After I took it, Not only did I completely dissolve the curse, but I also felt that my martial body became much stronger, and even my strength improved. I'm confident that I'll be able to absorb the power of the Dew Rainbow within 3 months, and reach the peak paramount god level. Yeah, Fat Cat said, nodding her head. Obviously, she had complete faith in Nyetian. If anyone else had heard Nyetian's words, their jaws would have dropped to the ground. To reach the peak paramount god level in 3 months was nothing short of monstrous. After all, Nyetian had only recently become a late paramount god. It was obvious that the Dew Rainbow truly did contain incredible power, which was why Nyetian was so confident that he would be able to improve his strength. At this moment, Nyetian suddenly sensed that someone had come. He couldn't help but narrow his eyes. However, in the next moment, he sensed a familiar aura. The corner of his mouth twitched and a smile appeared on his face. Then, 3 silhouettes appeared. It was the 3 Zun Zun. 3 Reverends, so it's you guys. Nyetian looked at the 3 Reverends and smiled. Nyetian, the 3 of us have taken the liberty to come here. Have we disturbed you? Supreme Moon laughed heartily and stepped into the small courtyard. The 3 Venerable Ones are too kind. Nyetian smiled and gestured for the 3 Venerable Ones to sit down. He also sat on the stone platform in the courtyard. The 3 Venerable Ones looked at Nyetian, looking like they wanted to say something but were hesitant to do so. 3 Venerables, just say what you want to say. Nyetian couldn't help but smile when he saw this scene. Nyetian, if that's the case, we won't stand on ceremony. Supreme Moon nodded and said, Actually, we are here to ask you for a favor. What kind of favor? Nyetian was dumbfounded, then he said with a smile. In half a month, the path to heaven will open. The 3 of us would like to go with you, but I'm afraid our Lord won't agree. So, we would like to ask you to tell our Lord about this. Supreme Moon coughed and said embarrassedly. Nyetian was dumbfounded. He didn't expect the 3 Venerable Ones to come to him for this. After pondering for a moment, Nyetian said with a smile, Venerable Lords, the 3 of you are far more important to the sect master than I am. If the sect master doesn't allow you to go, even if I beg the sect master, it might not be of any help, right? Yes. As long as you, Nyetian, say it, our Lord will definitely agree. Supreme Star was an impatient person, so he said with a smile. Nyetian frowned and his face looked even weirder. He said with a smile, Do I have such a great influence in our Lord's eyes? Yes. Supreme Star nodded and said suddenly, Our Lord is counting on you to save people. Of course, he will value your opinion. Save people? Save who? Nyetian was dumbfounded. He was confused. Didn't Purple Bamboo Mist ask him to participate in the path to heaven? Why did it become saving people? Nyetian, my friend, Supreme Star was too excited and said something wrong. Supreme Moon's face changed. She stared at Supreme Star and explained hurriedly. Right. Supreme Star reacted immediately. He said with a smile, I was too excited and said something wrong. Nyetian twitched the corner of his mouth and frowned even harder. Supreme Star was really smart. He admitted that he had said something wrong. 3 Reverends, what is going on? Nyetian asked in a deep voice, his face darkening. Supreme Sun and Supreme Moon stared at Supreme Star at the same time. The latter's forehead was covered in a cold sweat. Cough. Supreme Moon coughed and said, Nyetian, my friend, it's not that we don't want to tell you. It's just that this is related to our Lord. We really can't tell you. If you don't want to tell me, please go back. Nyetian frowned and replied coldly. This. The 3 Reverends' faces froze. They looked embarrassed. 3 Reverends, if you want my help, tell me the truth. Nyetian glanced at the 3 Reverends and said, Since I promised our Lord that I would listen to her arrangements for this month, I will try my best to do whatever she asks me to do. I will not refuse. The 3 Reverends frowned and looked at each other for a long time. They were obviously discussing. After a while, the three of them finished discussing. Supreme Moon smiled awkwardly and said, "Nye Tian, my friend, if that's the case, we will not hide it from you. We think our Lord asked you to participate in the path to heaven because she wants to save someone." "Save who?" Nye Tian frowned and asked. "Someone who is very important to our Lord." Supreme Moon's eyes flickered and he hesitated again before he said, "That person is our Lord's husband." "Lord's husband?" Nye Tian was stunned again and said, "Could it be that our Lord's husband is imprisoned?" "Yes." Supreme Moon nodded and said, "And he is imprisoned on the path to heaven. What is going on? Can you explain it to me?" The more Nye Tian listened, the more confused he became, and asked with a puzzled expression. He thought that the path to heaven was some kind of competition. Why did it sound like a prison from the three reverends' words? "Nye Tian, my friend, you will know what the path to heaven is very soon." Supreme Moon did not explain much but said, "What you need to know is that the person our Lord wants to save is very dangerous. It's okay if she can't be saved. But if she can't be saved, our Lord will be in trouble." Nye Tian was stunned. He suddenly felt that his brain was not enough. Purple bamboo flowing mist wants to save someone. Why is it a good thing if she can't be saved? "Nye Tian, my friend, you don't know this. If our Lord really does save her, I'm afraid the seventh house and the main house will turn against each other." Supreme Moon frowned and said seriously, "Why?" Nye Tian frowned even more. Chapter 2492. Chapter 2492. Chapter 242. Not qualified. Nye Tian was even more confused when he heard what the Moon Supreme said. He could not understand why the Lord of the Wanzhong Mountain would imprison Purple Bamboo Tempest's husband. Judging from Purple Bamboo Wolf 7's name, he seemed to be from the same clan as Purple Bamboo Tempest. "Moon Supreme, may I know the relationship between Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 and the Lord?" Nye Tian asked after he calmed down. "Brother and sister." The Moon Supreme looked upset and nodded. "Brother and sister," Nye Tian exclaimed and was stunned. He was wondering why Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 was making Purple Bamboo Tempest the lord of the 7th clan since he had imprisoned her husband. He did not expect Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 and Purple Bamboo Tempest to be siblings. In that case, this matter was even stranger. If Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 was Purple Bamboo Tempest's brother, why would he imprison her husband? After all that fuss, weren't they a family? "Zi Zhuxin, the lady you saw earlier, is Miss Zhong Nu," the Moon Supremacy added. Nye Tian was stunned and recalled what had happened in the basilica. He had felt that the relationship between Purple Bamboo Tempest and Zi Zhuxin was a little strange. It turned out that there were so many things going on between them. It seemed that Purple Bamboo Tempest hated her brother so much that she did not treat Zi Zhuxin well. After a while, Nye Tian became cold and asked with a frown, "Moon Supreme, you want to go with me because you're worried that something might happen to the Lord, right?" "Yes." The Lord nodded and said, "The Lord and Lord Patriarch are from the Purple Bamboo clan. The three of us watch them grow up. We don't want to see them kill each other." Nye Tian nodded and asked, "The three honorables, are you going to stop the Lord from saving the Lord?" "I don't know." The Moon Supreme shook his head and smiled bitterly. "It's complicated. We'll have to take it one step at a time." The corner of Nye Tian's mouth twitched slightly. "So there is such a secret behind this. Thank you for telling me. I will ask the sovereign to let the three of you go together." "Thank you, little friend Nye Tian." Hearing Nye Tian's reply, the three venerable ones bowed in unison to express their gratitude. "Three honored ones, this is my first time in the frozen ruins. I have some questions to ask the three of you." Nye Tian nodded with a smile. "Nye Tian, my little friend, just ask. As long as we know, we will not hide anything." The Moon Zun smiled and replied. Following that, Nye Tian asked the three Supremes some questions and learned a lot about the frozen ruins. After a while, the three venerables left, and Nye Tian prepared to enter his room to rest. But at this moment another visitor appeared. Miss Zijou, why are you here? Nie Tian saw Zijou Xian's silhouette outside the small courtyard and asked in confusion. Zijou Xian slowly walked over with a smile on her delicate face. She said, Nie Tian, I will be leaving soon. I came to say goodbye to you. Thank you for saving my life. Miss Zijou, you are too kind. Nie Tian faintly smiled, his expression calm. Previously, Nie Tian did save Zijou Xian's life. However, at that time, he did not know Zijou Xian's identity. He did not expect that the person he saved was the daughter of the 10,000 Mountain faction. Nie Tian, are you going to participate in the path to heaven? Zijou Xian looked at Nie Tian and suddenly asked. Yes. Nie Tian bitterly smiled and said, I had no choice. I will also participate in the path to heaven. We will meet again very soon. Zijou Xian chuckled happily and said, If we meet again on the path to heaven, you have to go easy on me. I will. Nie Tian smiled and nodded. The two chatted for a while more before Zijou Xian left. Gazing at Zijouxin's back, the corner of Nie Tian's mouth rose into a faint smile as he thought to himself, I wonder what the path to the heavens will be like. The journey to the heavens would begin in half a month, and Nie Tian felt an indescribable sense of anticipation. In the blink of an eye, half a month passed. At this moment, the huge square of the seventh sect was bustling with people. Nie Tian and the others appeared at the center of the square. Next to Nie Tian stood Jun Aoqing, Yuji Wushuang, and Yu Qingqi. The three of them would also participate in the path to heaven with Nie Tian. After a while, Purple Zhu Xian appeared. At the same time, the three Venerable Ones and the elders of the seventh sect also appeared. Under Nie Tian's strong request, the three Venerable Ones and Purple Zhu Xian would participate in the path to heaven. Nie Tian, are you guys ready? Purple Zhu Xian walked over and asked Nie Tian. I'm ready, Nie Tian said with a faint smile, his face filled with confidence. Kid, the path to heaven is not an ordinary competition. It's a competition where the genius martial artists of dozens of branch sects will compete together. At this moment, Hua Muk walked over with a cold smile on his face. He looked at Nie Tian with disdain and said, Although you're not weak, I'm afraid you'll become cannon fodder after entering the path to heaven. Elder Hua, whether I become cannon fodder or not is my own business. It has nothing to do with you. Nie Tian looked at Hua Muk and replied cold. Whether you die or not doesn't matter. What matters is that you'll waste the spot for the path to heaven. Hua Muk smiled cold and said directly. The spot was given by the sect leader. If you have a problem with it, you can talk to the sect leader. Nie Tianling laughed with a cold and arrogant face. Brat, you. Hua Muk felt a tightness in his chest after being rebutted by Nie Tian. He was speechless. Enough! At this moment, Purple Zhu Xian spoke cold. It's getting late. Let's go. Sect leader. However, right at this moment, a voice rang out. A figure strode out and stared at Nie Tian with his beady eyes. He said in a loud voice, I feel that a weakling like him doesn't deserve to participate in the path to heaven with me. The provocative words caused a commotion in the crowd. That's right. He's only a late paramount god. He doesn't deserve to participate in the path to heaven. He just joined the seventh sect, and hasn't even been through the selection process. What gives him the right to participate in the path to heaven? I can't accept that he's participating in the path to heaven. Everyone was shouting and yelling in opposition to Nie Tian. Every subsidiary sect in the 10,000 Mountains only had 8 spots for the path to heaven, and Nie Tian and his people had taken 4. Of course, the other disciples of the 7th sect weren't happy about that. Purple Zhu Xian said with a frown, an embarrassed expression on her face. Nie Tian looked at the person in front of him and realized that he looked very similar to Hua Zhigue. Understanding immediately, he asked, What's your relationship with Prince Hua? When the man heard Nie Tian mention Prince Hua's name, His face darkened and he said cold, "This Prince Hua is named Hua Zigui. I'm his third brother, Hua Zigui." "Oh, so you're brothers," Nie Tian said with a faint smile. "No wonder you're the same. Idiots." Now he understood why Hua Miuk had suddenly stepped forward to provoke him. He wanted to use Hua Zigui to make a move on Nie Tian. Hua Zigui wasn't bad. He was a peak paramount god, and his battle prowess was roughly on par with Yu Qingqi.